Chapter 147. Lu Ming pondered for a while before heading to the mission hall. He was going to accept the mission to exterminate the Eastern barbarians. Killing the Eastern barbarians and their demonic beasts would not only earn him contribution points, but Lu Ming could also devour their blood essence to increase his cultivation. Killing two birds with one stone. Arriving at the mission hall, he easily accepted the mission. After receiving the mission token, Lu Ming rushed to Donkey City. He did not ride on his mount, but used his movement skill to rush over. With his current movement skill, he was much faster than the green scale horse. Moreover, the process of rushing over was also a process of cultivating his movement skill. Using the airborne steps, Lu Ming's body was as light as a gust of wind. He stepped on the grass with the tip of his foot and flew dozens of meters forward. He was as light as a swan and disappeared in the blink of an eye. At this speed, Lu Ming arrived at the outskirts of Donkey City in merely 3 days. Donkey City was undoubtedly a big city. The city walls were more than 30 meters tall, which was many times larger than Firestorm City. At this time, the gates of Donkey City were tightly shut, and the city walls were guarded by soldiers in iron armor. The city was heavily guarded. "Stop, who are you?" When Lu Ming arrived at the city gates, an armored general on the city walls shouted, "I am a disciple of the Mystic Essence Sword sect." Lu Ming took out his jade identity token and waved it gently. The token flew up the city walls. "You are indeed a disciple of the Mystic Essence Sword sect. Open the city gates." After checking the jade identity token, the armored general threw it back to Lu Ming and ordered. Crack, crack. The city gates opened slightly, and Lu Ming walked in. After Lu Ming entered, the city gates closed immediately. Behind the city gates, there were many armored soldiers on guard. There were more of them than on the city walls. Donkey City was guarded by a legion of the Burning Sun Empire. There were 50,000 soldiers, all of whom were elites. Their purpose was to intimidate the Eastern barbarians. Now that the royal family was on the decline, and the sects were on the rise, although the armies of the Burning Sun Empire still listened to the royal family on the surface, they actually listened to the sects more. Take Donkey City's army, for example. On the surface, it appeared that they were under the command of the imperial family, but in reality, they were under the command of the Mystic Essence Sword sect. Therefore, they would report to the Mystic Essence Sword sect whenever something happened. Young Hero, the disciples of the Mystic Essence Sword sect, are all in the first camp. Let me take you there. A soldier walked up to Lu Ming and said, "All right." Lu Ming nodded. He followed the soldier and headed to the first camp. As soon as he entered the camp, he heard a commotion. What a joke! You guys haven't even reached Martial Master Realm Stage 4, yet you actually dare to accept this mission. Are you guys really fucking crazy for contribution points? You really don't want to live anymore. Let me tell you, if you embarrass our Mystic Essence Sword sect on the battlefield, I won't forgive you. A few trash below the 4th level of the Martial Master Realm. Humph, when the time comes, no one will save you. Arrogant voices sounded in Lu Ming's ears. Lu Ming followed the voice and walked over. As he got closer, he saw a few groups of people gathered together. They were obviously disciples of the Mystic Essence Sword sect. Big Stone. Lu Ming spotted Pang Shi among the small group of people at one glance. At that moment, Pang Shi's face was flushed red. He was blocked by another group of people with 3 or 4 other people. Our cultivation is low, but we won't charge at the front. We can at least kill some scattered Dongi tribesmen, right? Pang Shi said in a low, muffled voice. Kill scattered Dongi tribesmen? So you guys are here to take advantage of us. Get back to the sect immediately. Do you think you can take advantage of the White Tiger sect A young man with triangular eyes said coldly opposite Pang Shi. Nonsense. Who said we're here to take advantage of you? I won't take advantage of you, Pang Shi replied loudly. The young man with triangular eyes said coldly, How dare you talk back? Are you looking for a beating? There were other disciples of the Mystic Essence Sword sect at the side, but none of them interfered. They were all watching the show. Looking for a beating? Who do you think you can beat? Lu Ming walked over and said indifferently, Who? The young man with triangular eyes said coldly and turned to Lu Ming. However, when he saw Lu Ming's face, his face froze. Lu Ming, the young man with triangular eyes said in a daze. The other people's faces also changed slightly. However, there were also some people who were watching with great interest. This time, it wasn't just the bronze disciples who came, there were also many silver disciples who came. Senior brother Lu Ming, you're here too. Pang Shi was overjoyed when he saw Lu Ming. Big stone. Lu Ming smiled and walked over. Then he looked at the young man with triangular eyes and said, Who did you say you wanted to beat? The young man with triangular eyes stammered for a long time, but he did not say a word. Lu Ming, junior brother Ming, is doing it for their own good. They are disciples of the Vermilion Bird Courtyard, right? Their cultivation is too low, not even Martial Master level 4. If they go to the battlefield with such cultivation, it will be very dangerous. Junior brother Ming is doing it for their safety. At this moment, a young man behind the young man with triangular eyes walked up and said, Yes, that's right. After seeing this young man, the young man with triangular eyes was emboldened. Oh, Lu Ming responded with an oh, and then asked the triangular-eyed man, What is your cultivation level then? Me, Peak Martial Master level 6. The young man with triangular eyes replied confidently. Peak Martial Master level 6. It's very dangerous to go to the battlefield with such a low cultivation. Hurry up and go back. Lu Ming said indifferently and added, I'm doing it for your own good. The young man with triangular eyes' face turned red. Lu Ming, don't be unreasonable. Another young man said coldly, Who do you think you are? Lu Ming looked at him from the corner of his eyes. How dare you, Lu Ming? Don't think that you can be arrogant just because you are first on the bronze list. No matter how talented you are, you can only show off among the bronze disciples. Senior brother Du is a silver disciple, a Martial Master level 2 expert. He can easily suppress you. Now that we are talking to you nicely, don't fail to appreciate our kindness. The young man with triangular eyes pointed at Lu Ming and shouted loudly. Although Lu Ming's battle strength was very strong, he was only a martial master. Although his talent was heaven-defying and he could defeat or even kill a martial master level 1 expert. However, a martial master level 1 and a martial master level 2 were two different concepts. A martial master level 1 expert could not fight back against a martial master level 2 expert. This was the confidence of the young man with triangular eyes. He did not believe that Lu Ming could fight against a Martial Master level 2 expert. Martial Master level 2? No wonder you are so arrogant. Lu Ming curled his lips and sneered as he waved his hand. Pah! The young man with triangular eyes was sent flying. I don't know how to appreciate your kindness. So what? Lu Ming's indifferent voice sounded, followed by the sound of the young man with triangular eyes landing heavily on the ground. Lu Ming, you are too arrogant. Do you really think that no one can stop you? Chapter 148. Of course, there is someone who can defeat me, but unfortunately, it can't be you. Lu Ming curled his lips and laughed. Senior brother Du, you must avenge me. At this moment, The triangular-eyed man struggled to get up and cried out. Unfortunately, one side of his face was swollen like a pig's head. Blood flowed from his mouth, and several of his teeth were missing. Senior Dew's expression became even more unsightly. Beside him, a few other silver disciples of the White Tiger Hall also walked over with an unfriendly expression. However, they were all first-layer martial masters. This Lu Ming is still as domineering as before. At the side, some disciples from the other halls were watching, and someone commented, "Geniuses are all like that. However, I feel that going too far is as bad as falling short. Even if you are a genius, you still have to be patient when you need to be patient, because a genius who has not grown up is just an ordinary warrior. If you blindly act domineeringly and act according to your temperament, you will definitely suffer." You are right. This Lu Ming's battle strength is indeed very strong. Even a first-layer martial master would be at a disadvantage against him. However, it is impossible for him to be a match for a second-layer martial master. Watch carefully. He is up against Du Feng. He will soon be at a disadvantage. The people at the side were whispering, "Lu Ming, do you know why many geniuses fall early? It is because they do not know how to restrain themselves. When facing an undefeatable opponent, they still act high and mighty. That is why they fall before they mature." Senior Du said coldly. Lu Ming smiled faintly. "Nonsense! When facing an undefeatable opponent, of course you have to restrain yourself. Do I need you to tell me that? However, when facing an opponent that can be suppressed with a flip of the palm, why should I restrain myself?" The surrounding people were somewhat stunned. Lu Ming's meaning was clear. He could suppress Du Feng with a flip of the palm. "Ha ha ha!" Du Feng laughed out of extreme anger and said, "Let's see how you will suppress me with a flip of the palm." Dong! Du Feng took a step forward. It was as if a heavy hammer hammered the ground, producing a violent rumble. The aura on his body burst out. It was thick and powerful like a mountain. It was much stronger than a ninth-layer martial master. It could be said that a second-level martial master could kill a ninth-level martial master with a flip of his hand. Du Feng's hand glowed, and a green longsword condensed. It looked as if it was carved from green jade. Slash! Du Feng's sword slashed down towards Lu Ming. Sword Qi whistled, extremely shocking. Stronger than Jian Wuchen, Lu Ming's eyes flickered, as expected of a second-layer martial grandmaster. With Jian Wuchen's battle prowess, killing a first-layer martial grandmaster should be easy. However, he should not be a match for a second-layer martial grandmaster. However, Lu Ming was not at the ninth-level martial master. Boom! Without even looking, Lu Ming punched out. His fist was wrapped in a layer of fiery red light, making Lu Ming's fist look like a fireball. Boom! It was unstoppable and unstoppable. Lu Ming's punch directly destroyed the sword aura that Du Feng slashed out, the combat sword that was condensed from his vital energy, and so on. Lu Ming's punch did not stop and continued to bombard. How can this be? In an instant, Du Feng's eyes widened and flashed with disbelief. Then, he roared and exploded with all his strength. His body retreated quickly. His hand glowed, and a real spirit weapon appeared in front of him. Clang! Tang Feng's fist smashed onto the spirit weapon sword. A violent force erupted, and Du Feng's body was blasted away like a cannonball. He crashed into the wall more than 30 meters away, smashing the wall and causing a burst of smoke and dust to fill the air. Hiss, hiss, hiss. Gasps could be heard from the audience. The disciples of the 4 great academies stared so hard that their eyeballs almost popped out. One punch, just one punch, and Du Feng was sent flying. He was not a match at all. He was as weak as a chicken. How is this possible? Could it be that Lu Ming has already broken through to the martial Grand Master realm? How can he be so fast? But that's the only possibility. Otherwise, he wouldn't be so strong. For geniuses like them, it's easy for them to step into the martial Grand Master realm. They had never heard of a 9th-layer martial master being able to send a 2nd-layer martial Grand Master flying with one punch. They guessed that Lu Ming should have stepped into the martial Grand Master realm. The triangular-eyed man was also dumbfounded. When he reacted, his whole body was trembling in fear. Du Feng struggled to get up from the shattered wall. His body was covered in dust, and he was in a very sorry state. Lu Ming, just you wait. This time, there are 3rd-layer martial grandmasters and even 4th-layer martial grandmasters from the White Tiger Hall. Let's wait and see. Du Feng fiercely threw down a sentence and then left with his tail between his legs. It was too embarrassing. He couldn't stay for a second longer. The triangular-eyed man also hurriedly left with Du Feng. Lu Ming smiled and didn't care. Senior brother Lu Ming, you've become stronger again. Pang Shi walked over and said, Big Stone, how many days have you been here? Come, tell me about the situation. Lu Ming changed the topic. I've only been here for 2 days. The two of them came to a military camp. Pang Shi introduced the place to Lu Ming. According to Pang Shi, the Dongyi tribe attacked Dongke City 3 days ago. However, they retreated not long after and didn't continue to attack for the past 2 days. Big Stone, when the battle starts, he can't be impulsive. Lu Ming warned. During the battle, tens of thousands of soldiers would attack. Pang Shi's cultivation was indeed lower. Now, he was only a 2nd-layer martial master. I know. I just want to train. I won't die for nothing. Pang Shi scratched his head. Then, he walked around with Pang Shi. In the military camp, the army had already gone out to stand guard. Only the disciples of the Mystic Essence Sword Sect were here. The disciples of the Mystic Essence Sword Sect had a special status. Therefore, when there was no battle, they were more casual and could do whatever they wanted. The first day was peaceful. On the second day, it was still peaceful. The Dongyi tribe didn't make any moves. In the past 2 days, the disciples of the White Tiger sect didn't cause trouble for Lu Ming either. On the 3rd day of Lu Ming's arrival, dong, 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 suddenly, the war drums rumbled like thunder, resounding in the military camp. The Dongyi tribe is attacking. Let's go and kill them. Ha! My contribution points are here. There were more than 2,000 disciples of the Mystic Essence Sword Sect in the past few days. Most of them were bronze-level disciples and a small number of silver-level disciples. There were about 100 of them. They had been bored out of their wits for the past few days. Now that they heard the war drums, they were all energized and rushed toward the city wall. Lu Ming, Pang Shi, and a few others also rushed toward the city wall. When they arrived at the city wall, the army of Dongke City was fully armed. Bows and crossbows were ready. Rumble! At this moment, in the distance at the end of the coastal mountain range, there was a sudden rumble, and the ground shook. Then, a dark cloud appeared at the end of the earth. No, those weren't dark clouds. They were beasts. There were countless beasts. There were tigers, wolves, leopards, and all kinds of beasts. There were even flying beasts. There were 1 or 2 human figures sitting on each of the demonic beasts. They were the Dongyi tribe. There were at least tens of thousands of beasts. Roar! Roar! Chapter 149. The faces of the Mystic Essence Sword Sect disciples changed. Some of them looked grave. Some of them were pale, and their eyes were filled with fear. Tens of thousands of demonic beasts gathered together, and there were even more Dongyi tribesmen among them. The aura they formed was too strong. It was overwhelming, as if it could crush everything. Other than cultivating, the Mystic Essence Sword sect disciples usually fought one-on-one with others. When had they ever seen such a scene? Now that they saw it, they were terrified. They used to be arrogant and did not take the Dongi tribesmen seriously. They thought that they were only here to snatch contribution points. Now, they no longer thought that way. This was a real war. It was good enough that they could survive such a war. Some people only felt their legs go soft and were already thinking of retreating. Among them, only Lu Ming had comprehended force. Lu Ming was able to use the force of fire to fight against the force of thousands of beasts. That was why he was not shocked. "Get ready!" An armored general on the city wall shouted. Whoosh! The movements of the soldiers on the city wall were uniform. Their longbows were drawn, and the bowstrings were fully drawn. Their eyes were fixed on the demonic beast army that was rolling towards them. Most of the soldiers were martial soldiers. Their cultivation might not be as strong as the Mystic Essence Sword sect disciples, but they were used to war. Their mental fortitude was much stronger than the Mystic Essence Sword sect disciples. Rumble! The tremors became more intense. The army of tens of thousands of demonic beasts was slowly approaching. Kill! When they were close enough, the armored general gave the order. Kill! Kill! On the city wall, the army of tens of thousands roared. Their roars shook the heavens. Whoosh! Whoosh! Then, the bows and arrows were shot out. Like a dark cloud, the arrows shot towards the demonic beast army. Suddenly, the demonic beasts in the army were hit by the arrows and fell to the ground. However, that was only a small part of the army. More demonic beasts continued to charge forward fearlessly. Continue shooting. Whoosh! Whoosh! Another wave of dense arrows shot towards the demonic beasts. Roars shook the heavens and blood filled the air. It was a tragic scene. Some of the Mystic Essence Sword sect disciples broke out in cold sweat. In such a situation, no matter how powerful one's cultivation was or how powerful one's Jinchi protection was, one would still be pierced through by the rain of arrows. Ouch! My stomach hurts a little. I need to relieve myself. A Mystic Essence Sword sect disciple suddenly clutched his stomach and screamed. Then he turned around and ran. Ah, my stomach hurts a little too. What a coincidence. When the others saw this, they also slipped away. In the blink of an eye, dozens of people had left. Lu Ming shook his head. He was scared off just like that. Such a person's future achievements would be very limited. Young heroes, there's no need for you to act now. You'll have to deal with the Dongi experts and high-level demonic beasts. An old man in iron armor walked over and said, Lu Ming recognized this person. He was the city lord of Dongke City, Fu Yang. Lu Ming and the rest nodded. The walls of Eastern K City were tall and majestic, and the demonic beasts below were mostly level 1 demonic beasts. It would not be easy for level 1 demonic beasts to attack. Level 2 and even level 3 demonic beasts would require Mystic Essence Sword sect disciples. This was because there were not many martial grandmasters in the army of Dongke City. Most of them were generals. Whoosh! At this moment, the Dongi people began to counterattack. They shot out small arrows from the bodies of the demonic beasts. Defend! With a loud roar, shields were erected on the city walls. Clang! Clang! All the arrows shot by the Dongi people hit the shields. Only a few of them hit the soldiers of Dongke City. Counterattack! Another round of arrows was shot from the city walls. After a few rounds, the demonic beasts were already close to the city walls. Charge! Break into Dongke City and take all the treasures and women. The Dongi people roared. Charge! Charge! The Dongi people roared and controlled the demonic beasts to charge up the city walls. On the city walls, rolling logs and blazing fire barrels rained down in torrents. Screams of agony were heard. This was completely different from a one-on-one fight between martial artists. Many of the Mystic Essence Sword sect disciples felt their mouths go dry. Lu Ming finally understood why the Mystic Essence Sword sect wanted the disciples of the 4 campuses to take on this mission. It was nothing more than training. Only by going through such a bloody battle could one's will become stronger. Roar. Finally, a demonic beast charged up the city walls. The Dongi people on the beast shot out long arrows. Most of the Dongi people were bare-chested. They were strong and had a longbow on their back and a scimitar on their waist. Charge! Fu Liang roared. He pulled out his battle saber and slashed at a Dongi man. The saber pierced through the air and split the Dongi man and his demonic beast in half. Fu Liang was at least a level 3 martial grandmaster. He was extremely powerful. Charge! The other Mystic Essence Sword sect disciples roared and charged. Suddenly, sword chi, saber chi, and fist energy flashed on the city walls. Big Stone, follow me, Lu Ming shouted. With a flick of his hand, the fiery tongue spear appeared. He stabbed out and nailed a demonic beast to the city walls. The Mystic Essence Sword sect disciples were undeniably strong. The moment they attacked the demonic beasts, and Dongi people on the city walls were instantly killed. Retreat! Retreat! Suddenly, a loud roar came from the Dongi people. Then, the horn sounded. Countless demonic beasts retreated toward the coastal mountains like a tide. Everyone was stunned. They retreated just like that. Was it just the beginning? Ha ha! The Dongi people are just SOSO. Some of the Mystic Essence Sword sect disciples were emboldened and laughed. Fu Liang frowned and pondered for a while. Something is wrong. How could the Dongi people retreat as soon as they attacked? It doesn't make sense. Mayor Fu, maybe the Dongi people are afraid of us because we have too many experts. A Mystic Essence Sword sect disciple laughed. Fu Liang frowned and said nothing. Lu Ming was also deep in thought. He had a feeling that things were not as simple as they seemed. The Dongi people came quickly and left quickly. Soon, they were nowhere to be seen. Next, it was time to clean up the battlefield. Lu Ming pretended to help. In fact, his goal was the blood essence of the demonic beasts and the Dongi experts. However, the blood essence of low-level demonic beasts and martial artists was of little help to Lu Ming. Lu Ming specifically chose high-level demonic beasts and martial artists, but there were very few of them. There was not even a single martial grandmaster. Absorbing the blood essence of dozens of demonic beasts and martial artists above the 6th level of the martial grandmaster realm did not help Lu Ming much. After the battle, Lu Ming and the others went back to rest. A day later, the war drums sounded again. Everyone rushed to the city walls. As expected, the Dongi people were attacking again. However, this time was similar to the last time. The Dongi people had just started their attack and retreated. It was the same on the 3rd day. At this time, many people felt that something was wrong. Chapter 150. Fu Liang sensed that something was amiss. He sent out scouts to patrol around Donkai City, fearing that the Dongi tribe was up to something. On the 4th day, the Dongi tribe came again. However, this time, the Dongi tribe's beast army did not attack. Instead, they stopped a few thousand meters away from Donkai City. That was beyond the range of the crossbows. Everyone on the city wall looked at each other, wondering what the Dongi tribe was up to. At this moment, a young man rode a tiger and rushed forward a few hundred meters. He looked at Donkai City and shouted, "There must be many disciples of the Mystic Essence Sword sect among you, right? I heard that the Mystic Essence Sword sect is one of the 5 major sects of the Burning Sun Empire. Today, I would like to see it for myself. I am Bach, 19 years old. I challenge all the geniuses of the Mystic Essence Sword sect below the age of 20. Who wants to fight me? His voice echoed throughout the city. The tens of thousands of soldiers on Donkey City were stunned. The Dongi tribe did not come to attack the city. Instead, they sent a young man to challenge the geniuses of the Mystic Essence Sword sect. Is the Dongi tribe trying to use this to attack our morale? Fu Liang frowned and pondered. However, they had to accept the Dongi tribe's challenge. The Dongi tribe was only a small tribe with a population of a few million. Compared to the Burning Sun Empire, they were many times weaker. A small tribe sending a young man to challenge the geniuses of the Mystic Essence Sword sect, one of the 5 major sects of the Burning Sun Empire. If they did not accept the challenge, the Dongi tribe would definitely say that the Mystic Essence Sword sect was afraid of them. This would definitely affect the morale of the army. Young heroes, do any of you want to fight? Fu Liang asked the disciples of the Mystic Essence Sword sect. We can fight, but be careful of traps. Many disciples of the Mystic Essence Sword sect hesitated. If they left the city and were attacked by the Dongi tribe, wouldn't they die in vain? The Eastern barbarians seemed to have guessed the crowd's thoughts. The army of demonic beasts slowly retreated. They only stopped when they had retreated 10 miles. Even if they wanted to attack, the disciples of the Mystic Essence Sword sect would have enough time to escape to Donkey City. Junior brothers, which of you wants to go up and fight? A young man in his 20s asked from the Mystic Essence Sword sect. The Dongi tribe wanted to challenge those under the age of 20. Since they dare to fight, they must be strong. We must not be careless. Some people were more cautious. What kind of genius can a mere Dongi tribe have? To be able to cultivate to the 9th realm of the Martial Master realm at the age of 19 is already very impressive. However, some people were disdainful. To reach the 9th level of the Martial Master realm at the age of 19, even in the Mystic Essence Sword sect, he could be considered a decent genius. For example, many of the people on the bronze list were already 18 or 19 years old. Some of the older disciples were even in their 20s. I think it's better to be cautious. What if the other party is a martial grandmaster? Someone asked cautiously. First layer, martial grandmaster at most. I'll go and fight. In the White Tiger courtyard, a tall young man shouted coldly. He jumped down from the city wall and strode toward the young man from the Dongi tribe. It's Duanmu Yunfei. With him fighting, will most likely win. That's right. It is said that Duanmu Yunfei almost made it into the bronze list back then. His talent is very high. Now that he is 20 years old, he is already a first-layer martial grandmaster. The disciples of the Mystic Essence Sword sect were rather confident in Duanmu Yunfei. Duanmu Yun's flying speed is extremely fast. Not long after, she arrived in front of Ba He. Come down, let's fight. Duanmu Yunfei shouted coldly. Ba He smiled and jumped down from the tiger, facing Duanmu Yunfei. You go first. Otherwise, you won't have a chance. Bah, he was very confident. How dare you be so arrogant in front of me? You're courting death. Duanmu Yunfei's killing intent flashed. He unsheathed his long sword and stabbed out 3 times in an instant. 3 sword radiances flashed at an astonishing speed. An ordinary martial master, realm 9 martial artist would not be able to dodge them and would be killed in an instant. Duanmu Yunfei displayed the strength of a martial grandmaster. However, Ba He arched his body slightly like a fierce tiger. He took a step forward, and his body was as fast as lightning, easily dodging Duanmu Yunfei's sword radiances. So powerful. He has definitely reached the martial grandmaster realm. The spectators on the city wall were shocked. It seems that although the Dongi tribe has few people, they still have geniuses. Duanmu Yunfei's eyes flashed when his attack missed. He immediately activated his bloodline and displayed his strongest combat strength. Die! Swoosh! Swoosh! 9 consecutive swords. The sword chi continued to flow towards Ba He. It's over! Ba He's eyes flashed fiercely. A strong, evil aura seeped out of his body like a ferocious beast. Swoosh! A snow-white ray of light flashed out like a bright moonlight. It was Ba He's blade radiance. However, it was unbelievably fast. Duanmu Yunfei did not even see it clearly before he felt a chill in his throat. Then, endless darkness enveloped him. 1 slash. He killed Duanmu Yunfei with 1 slash. How is that possible? On the city wall, the spectators were shocked when they saw Duanmu Yunfei's head flying high. When did he slash out? I didn't see it clearly. I didn't see it clearly either. It was too fast. I only saw a flash of light, and Duanmu Yunfei was killed. This Ba He is too strong. The Dongi tribe has such a genius. The disciples of the mystic essence sword sect discussed. In my opinion, the Dongi tribe came prepared this time. They have sent their top genius. Fu Liang frowned and said, "Damn it, if it weren't for the rule of being below 20 years old, I would have killed him." A young man in his 20s who was at the Martial Master Realm 3rd Realm said, "I'll kill him." At this moment, another young man walked out and jumped down the city wall. It's Lu Cheng. He has already reached the peak of the first layer of the Martial Grandmaster Realm. It is said that he has been bitterly cultivating a low-grade, profound tier martial skill. I reckon he has already reached a certain level of maturity. I wonder if he will be able to fight against his opponent if his lower black level martial technique reaches the 2nd level. He should be able to fight. Lu Cheng quickly arrived in front of Ba He. "Make your move." Ba He still had that calm expression on his face. In his eyes, there was even a hint of disdain. Being looked down upon by a barbarian from the Dongi tribe, Lu Cheng's eyes flashed with killing intent. He unsheathed his sword and turned into a meteor, attacking Ba He. Meteor swordplay. There must be a 2nd level, or even more. There is hope. However, before the disciples of the Mystic Essence Sword Sect could finish their words, they stopped abruptly. This was because Ba He had slashed out with his blade. With 1 slash, Lu Cheng's head fell to the ground. Lu Cheng was still killed by a single slash. The sound of people sucking in cold breaths could be heard. How is that possible? How can a mere Dongi tribe have such a strong genius? He killed Lu Cheng, who has cultivated a black level martial technique, and reached the peak of Martial Master Realm, 1st Realm. How strong is he? What is his cultivation? Chapter 151. To have such a strong combat strength at the age of 19, he would be considered a top genius even in the Mystic Essence Sword Sect. Furthermore, they had no idea how strong the other party was. They only felt that he was unfathomable. Fu Liang frowned. After a while, he said, "If I'm not wrong, he has reached the peak of Martial Master Realm." What? Peak of Martial Master Realm? At the scene, the sound of people sucking in cold air once again rang out. To reach the peak of Martial Master Realm at the age of 19, he was stronger than they had imagined. Such a cultivation was considered top in the Mystic Essence Sword Sect. For example, Zhang Muyun and Duanmu Yunyang were around 18 years old when the grand competition of the 4 academies took place. This was because they had deliberately stayed behind to accumulate experience. Disregarding everything else, just Ba He's cultivation speed was already not much weaker than Zhang Muyun and the others. However, Zhang Muyun and the rest were the top geniuses of the Mystic Essence Sword Sect. damn it, the top geniuses of the Mystic Essence Sword sect did not come today. Otherwise, he wouldn't have the chance to be so arrogant. Yeah, the other party caught us off guard. Although some people looked at Lu Ming, they shook their heads. Lu Ming was still a martial master not long ago. Even if he had reached the martial master realm, he would not be a match for the other party. Lu Ming's eyes flashed. Just as he was about to make a move, Bahi spoke. What? No one is going to make a move. The Mystic Essence Sword sect is only SOSO. How about this? I'll raise the age by 2 years. Anyone below 22 can come and fight with me. Bahi laughed with disdain. All right, 22 years old. You said it yourself. The young man who was over 20 years old shouted. He jumped down and rushed towards the other party. Ha ha, senior brother Lu Tian has made his move. The other party is dead, for sure. He's too confident. He actually raised his own age by 2 years. Senior brother Lu Tian is exactly 22 years old, and his cultivation has already reached the 3rd layer of the martial grandmaster realm. It's enough to suppress him. Furthermore, senior brother Lu Tian was someone who was on the bronze ranking back then. The other party is courting death. After killing 2 of our people, he's too arrogant. The disciples of the Mystic Essence Sword sect smiled. However, Lu Ming frowned. He didn't know why, but he felt that it wasn't that simple. Soon, Lu Tian arrived in front of Bach. A mere barbarian has killed 2 disciples of my Mystic Essence Sword sect. You deserve to die 1,000 times over. Now, let me send you on your way. Lu Tian's eyes were incomparably cold. Bahi smiled faintly and said disdainfully. The other 2 said the same thing, but they couldn't even block a single strike from me. Don't compare me to them. Lu Tian shouted coldly as his aura burst forth. The aura of a 3rd-grade martial master formed a strong pressure that crushed towards the other party. However, Bach only smiled faintly with a hint of mockery on his lips. He was as calm as the wind, as if he was not under any pressure at all. Backwind 3 slashes. Lu Tian suddenly shouted and unsheathed his saber. A terrifying saber light soared into the sky, forming a saber that was dozens of meters long, and slashed towards Bach. Good, the 4th stage of a low-grade profound martial skill. Fu Liang applauded and thought to himself, as expected of a genius of the Mystic Essence Sword sect. He can cultivate a low-grade profound martial skill to the 4th stage when he's only a 3rd-grade martial master. Ordinary martial artists might not be able to cultivate a low-grade profound martial skill at the 3rd-grade martial master realm. Even he, who had cultivated a low-grade profound martial skill for dozens of years, was only at the 4th stage. Interesting. Bach smiled and unsheathed his saber again. Swoosh! The saber light broke through the air and slashed rapidly towards Lu Tian's head. This move is useless against me. Lu Tian roared, and his true qi burst forth. 2 sabers formed in front of him and slashed forward. Bam, bam. The sabers formed by true qi were shattered, but Lu Tian had bought some time. The saber in his hand broke through the air and slashed towards the other party's head. Bach took a step back and retreated dozens of meters. Good. Senior brother Lu Tian is mighty. The Mystic Essence Sword sect disciples shouted. Finally, a disciple of the Mystic Essence Sword sect had the upper hand, so they were naturally excited. Ha! Looks like you have some ability, unlike those trash just now. Then, I'll be serious too. Bach suddenly laughed. Be serious? Arrogant. You're clearly at a disadvantage, but you still want to save face. Humph, I was too full of myself. Senior brother Lu Tian, kill him. Show these Eastern barbarians the power of our Mystic Essence Sword sect. Kill him. The Mystic Essence Sword sect disciples shouted. However, Lu Tian could not laugh. The moment Bach said that he was serious, he felt a powerful and eerie aura shrouding him. Being shrouded by this aura, Lu Tian felt his body turn cold. A chill rose from the bottom of his heart. To be able to force me to use my true strength, you can die with no regrets. Bach licked his lips, and a bloody light flashed in his eyes. Then a thick black true qi emerged from his body. Purgatory saber technique. Bach shouted and slashed out. At this moment, the wind and clouds gathered. The black true qi on his body gathered together with the saber light and vaguely formed an evil spirit. It was as if an evil spirit had slashed out with his saber. Lu Tian was shocked. He roared and activated his bloodline, displaying his strongest combat strength. Meteor destruction. Swish, swish. The two saber lights met in the air. With a loud sound, the saber light shot out. Bam! Then a figure retreated quickly. It was Lu Tian. His face was pale, and he coughed up blood. His eyes were filled with horror. After retreating, he turned around and ran. He did not dare to fight. It's too late to run. A cold voice sounded. A black saber light crossed the void and slashed at Lu Tian. Save me! Lu Tian shouted, but it was no use. Puchi! His head fell to the ground and blood splattered. Lu Tian, a third-stage martial master, who was once on the bronze list, was killed by someone whose cultivation was lower than his. Moreover, it was from a small tribe like the Eastern barbarians. How is this possible? How is this possible? The mystic essence sword sect disciples could not accept this fact. How could the Eastern barbarians have such a powerful genius? This was not a simple battle. One had to know that Lu Tian was also a genius. He was not an ordinary third-stage martial master. However, he was killed by someone whose cultivation was higher. The opponent's cultivation technique is very special. It doesn't seem like the cultivation technique of the Eastern barbarians. Fu Liang suddenly said, "You're saying that the opponent is not from the Eastern barbarians?" A mystic essence sword sect disciple asked. I don't know. Maybe the Eastern barbarians had a fortuitous encounter. Fu Liang said, Haha, what genius! You're all trash. Is there anyone else who wants to fight with me? Bach's body was filled with black, true qi. His gaze was like lightning and his aura was like a rainbow. No one said anything. At first, I thought that the Mystic Essence Sword sect had some powerful geniuses. That's why they set an age limit. Now it seems that there's no need. The small Emperor Lai's son. No, the Mystic Essence Sword sect doesn't have any decent geniuses. Chapter 152. Lu Ming's expression changed. He had heard something from Ba He's words. Ba He had just said, small burning sun empire. But before he could finish, he changed the topic. This was strange. If he was from the Dongyi tribe, he would not have said that. Could it be that Ba He was not from the Dongyi tribe? He was not even from the Burning Sun Empire. But if he was not from the Burning Sun Empire, why would he go to the Dongyi tribe? Lu Ming's thoughts were in a whirl. The people from the Mystic Essence Sword sect had ugly expressions on their faces. For a moment, no one dared to fight. There were a few fourth-grade martial master experts present, but they were all older than 22. If they fought, they would be a laughing stock. The soldiers on the city wall were also silent. In their eyes, the Mystic Essence Sword sect was a high and mighty martial arts holy land. But now, the geniuses of the Mystic Essence Sword sect were being suppressed by a young man from the Dongyi tribe. This was a huge blow to their confidence, and their morale plummeted. Fu Yang's eyes were filled with anxiety. If this went on, it would not be good. Report. Suddenly, a soldier hurried in to report. What's the matter? Fu Liang asked. Governor, there's a major discovery. The Dongi tribe has sent a group of people 1,000 miles south of Donkey City. They are rushing towards Mount Juyao. The soldier reported, "What? Is the Dongi tribe here an illusion? They are sending a surprise army to attack other big cities?" Fu Yang was shocked. He quickly asked, "How many people did the Dongi tribe send?" "Not many, only a few hundred." The soldier replied. "A few hundred?" Fu Yang was stunned. What was the use of a few hundred? "Governor, it is said that these hundreds of people are all experts. The weakest one is an advanced martial master." "What?" Fu Yang was shocked. He frowned. The disciples of the Mystic Essence Sword sect were also puzzled. "The Dongi tribe must have a motive. We must stop them," a disciple of the Mystic Essence Sword sect said. "That's right, but they are all experts. There are probably many martial masters. If we want to stop them, we will have to rely on you." Fu Yang cupped his fists. "No problem." The Mystic Essence Sword sect disciple nodded. "It's just that we have to get rid of that young man. Otherwise, it'll be a huge blow to our morale. If the other party launches an all-out attack, we'll be at a disadvantage." Fu Yang sighed. The members of the Mystic Essence Sword sect frowned again. "The other party is intentionally stalling for time. Something big is definitely happening over there. We have to hurry over as soon as possible." Someone said, "I'll go." Suddenly, a voice sounded. Everyone couldn't help but forget about it. Lu Ming. Everyone was stunned. Lu Ming? He was going to make a move? Could it be that he really broke through to the Martial Grand Master Realm? Even if he broke through to the Martial Grand Master Realm, it would still be impossible for him to be a match for him. He is at the peak of the second layer of the Martial Grand Master Realm. Furthermore, it is clear that he is also an absolute genius. Maybe there is hope. A few days ago, I saw Lu Ming send Du Feng flying with one punch. Let him try. When the disciples of the Mystic Essence Sword sect saw that it was Lu Ming who spoke, they couldn't help but whisper amongst themselves. Lu Ming ignored him and stepped forward. "Senior brother Lu Ming, be careful!" Pang Shi shouted from behind. Lu Ming smiled faintly and leaped down from the city wall. Among the disciples of the Mystic Essence Sword sect, there was a pair of resentful eyes staring at Lu Ming. It was Du Feng. That day, he was injured by a punch and became a laughingstock. He was humiliated and hated Lu Ming to the core. Just a moment ago, he was still being mocked by others. At this moment, he was roaring in his heart, "Ha! Lu Ming, go to hell. You think you are a genius? Do you think you are better than Lu Tian? It's good that you are dead." Beside him, the triangular-eyed youth also had a resentful look on his face. The few of them tried their best to squeeze forward, wanting to see Lu Ming being killed by Ba He with their own eyes. Lu Ming was as light as a swallow and arrived in front of Ba He in no time. Ha! After beating up the older one, a younger one came. "Kid, since you are here, my saber will not show you any mercy." Seeing Lu Ming's age, Ba He was stunned for a moment before a mocking look appeared on his face. "You are not from the Burning Sun Empire, are you?" Lu Ming did not answer the question, but Ba He's face changed. "Speak, what are you doing here? Also, what is the purpose of the Dongi tribe heading to Mount Juyao?" Lu Ming continued to ask. Ba He's face changed a few times before he sneered. "You don't have to care about that. Anyway, it is useless for you to know because you are going to die soon. Then why aren't you attacking? I know that you are trying to stall for time and delay us, but I don't have that much time to waste with you." After Lu Ming finished speaking, the storage ring on his finger lit up, and the fire-tongue spear appeared in his hand. His aura also exploded. "First-level martial master? Ha ha! A first-level martial master dares to come and die? How naive! At the sight of Lu Ming's cultivation level, Bach laughed maniacally. He almost burst into tears. On the city wall, Fu Liang kept shaking his head. Previously, when he saw Lu Ming's age, he felt that something was amiss. He was too young. Now that he saw Lu Ming's cultivation, he was a first-level martial master. Although it was shocking to have such cultivation at his age, he was still a first-level martial master. How could he be a match for Bach? "Young hero, come back quickly. We will think of another way," Fu Liang shouted. Lu Ming was so young and had such a cultivation. In the Mystic Essence Sword sect, he was definitely a top genius. If he died here, Fu Liang was afraid that the Mystic Essence Sword sect would blame him. "Mayor Fu, don't worry. Our junior Lu Ming is powerful and a peerless genius. Who knows, he might be able to kill Ba He," Du Feng said with a strange smile. However, everyone could hear the gloating and mockery in his words. "Haha, since you are here, how can you leave?" Ba He unsheathed his saber, and a cold killing intent appeared on his body, enveloping Lu Ming. "Nonsense!" Lu Ming scolded. He couldn't be bothered to say more and swept out his spear. "I will kill you with one slash." Ba He's voice was cold. The saber light was even colder as it slashed towards Lu Ming's head. It was as fast as lightning. Pooh! The saber accurately landed on Lu Ming's neck. However, at that moment, he was shocked because it was only an afterimage. Not good. He let out a low roar and black chi burst out from his body. He stomped his feet and rushed forward without hesitation. Xiao! A ray of spear aura pierced past his ear. The cold spear aura left a bloody scar on his face. Shwa! Shwa! He ran forward for dozens of meters before he dared to stop. He suddenly turned around and slashed at the air, but it hit nothing. Lu Ming stood dozens of meters away and looked at him with a smile. "Hey, why are you slashing at the air?" Lu Ming laughed. He's face flushed red, and his eyes were filled with cold, killing intent. "Your movement technique is not bad, but do you think you can defeat me with that? Dream on." Chapter 153. Purgatory Saber Technique. Kill. He roared. The saber aura pierced through the air and charged towards Lu Ming. Boom. Lu Ming's body emitted a scorching and explosive aura. Fire Force. Once the Fire Force was released, it instantly crushed He's cold, killing intent. Force. He's pupils constricted as shock flashed across his eyes. He never expected that Lu Ming could comprehend force at such a young age. So what if he comprehended force? He's only a first-stage martial master. Even if he comprehended force, he won't be my match. He's eyes flashed with ruthlessness. He was also a genius and could even kill a third-stage martial master. His combat strength was infinitely close to the fourth-stage martial master. He didn't believe that he wouldn't be a match for a first-stage martial master. His saber slashed out even more fiercely. This is a good opportunity to test my current combat strength. Landslide. Lu Ming took a step forward and swept his long spear from bottom to top. Clang. The saber and spear clashed, causing a deafening roar. A terrifying force surged and swept in all directions. One could see that the ground beneath Lu Ming and He's feet exploded, creating a 10-meter wide and 2-meter deep crater. Boom. Then, a figure quickly retreated. It was He. He staggered back more than 20 meters, his face filled with shock. One move. With just one move, he could feel that the vital energy in Lu Ming's body was like a violent storm. It was continuous, indestructible, and extremely condensed. What he cultivated was a black-level superior grade technique. His vital energy was rich and condensed, far surpassing the vital energy cultivated by yellow-level techniques. However, compared to Lu Ming's vital energy, it was trash. It was completely crushed, How can he be so strong? This strength is already comparable to a fourth-stage martial master. Bahi roared in his heart. There was a small gap between the third-stage martial master and the fourth-stage martial master, and the gap was huge. Bahi was shocked, and the people on the city wall were even more shocked. Their mouths were so wide open that a duck egg could be stuffed in. This young hero Lu Ming? Was he really only 16 years old? Is he really only at the first level of the martial grandmaster realm? Shock was written all over Fu Liang's determined old face. He had experienced countless life and death battles in his life, but he had never been so shocked. City Lord Fu, speaking of which, our junior brother Lu Ming is a legendary figure in the Mystic Essence Sword sect. He entered the sect last year, and in his first year, he rushed to the top of the bronze list. An older disciple of the Vermilion Bird Courtyard explained, his face faintly revealing a proud expression. You joined last year, first place on the bronze list in his first year? Fu Liang repeated and was even more shocked. On the side, Du Feng and the triangular-eyed young man's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. They stared at the city wall, thinking that their eyes were playing tricks on them. Ha ha ha. Pang Shi grinned. What are you waiting for? Let's continue. Lu Ming smiled faintly and dashed toward Bahi. Purgatory saber technique. Human purgatory. Bahi roared in rage and erupted with all his strength. His bloodline, his potential. Everything erupted as he rushed towards Lu Ming. Broken armor. The long spear stabbed out like lightning. Clang. Bach retreated again. Boom. Boom. Next, the two exchanged more than 10 moves, leaving more than 10 large pits on the ground. Bach was completely at a disadvantage. His face was pale, and his body was trembling. Blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. It's time to end this. Lu Ming whispered. He had a rough idea of his current combat strength. Without activating his bloodline, he could probably fight with an ordinary fourth-grade martial grandmaster. If he activated his bloodline, it should not be a problem for him to kill them. In the martial grandmaster realm, it was absolutely shocking to be able to kill an opponent who was 3 grades higher than him. Boom! With a flash of blood, Lu Ming's bloodline was activated and his strength increased greatly. Swoosh! The long spear turned into a ray of light and was much faster than before. Puchi! The long spear directly pierced through Bach's heart. The small blazing sun empire. Bach's eyes widened unwillingly, and then he stopped breathing. Puchi, pulling out the long spear. The body shook and blood splattered. There was not a single drop of blood on the tip of the spear. The devouring power appeared in his palm and devoured Bach's blood essence. Then he started to refine it. As he refined it, he looked at the Dongi army. He pointed his spear at the Eastern Barbarian army and shouted, "Who among you wants to fight?" Mighty, mighty! On the city wall, tens of thousands of soldiers roared, and their voices shook the sky. In the distance, the Dongi army panicked. They turned around and retreated. After the Dongi army retreated, Lu Ming returned to the city wall. Ha! Young hero Lu Ming is a peerless genius. I have never seen someone like you before, Fu Liang exclaimed. Thank you for your compliment. I was just lucky, Lu Ming said modestly. Then he said, let's organize our men and rush to Mount Juyao. That's right. Young heroes, who wants to go? There are a few sky eagles in the camp that can carry you there quickly. Fu Liang asked. This time, those above the martial grandmaster realm will go. Those below the martial grandmaster realm will stay here to guard. A 4th-level martial grandmaster expert said. Everyone nodded and had no objections. Soon, 5 huge sky eagles took off from Donkei City and flew towards Mount Juyao. Most of the 100 or so martial grandmaster disciples of the mystic essence sword sect had gone. Lu Ming was among them. There were 5 fourth-layer martial grandmaster experts gathered on the largest sky eagle in the middle. They were all 4th-level martial master experts from the mystic essence sword sect who had come this time. Among them, there were 2 from the White Tiger Hall and 1 from each of the other 3 halls. Of course, Lu Ming was among them. After this battle, they had already regarded Lu Ming as a 4th-level martial grandmaster. 5 4th-level martial grandmasters and Lu Ming gathered together to discuss. Everyone, I suggest that we put aside the grudges between the 4 halls for the time being. What do you think? Chun Quan, a 25-year-old 4th-level martial grandmaster from the Vermilion Bird Hall, suggested, I have no objections. Me neither. The 2 4th-level martial grandmasters from the Azure Dragon Hall and the Black Tortoise Hall nodded. The 2 4th-level martial master experts from the White Tiger Hall glanced at Lu Ming and exchanged glances. Subsequently, they nodded and said, We have no objections. Me neither. Lu Ming nodded with a smile. He didn't care. If the White Tiger Hall wanted to target him, he didn't mind teaching them a painful lesson. That's good. This time, the Dongi tribe and other people are involved in this matter. In my opinion, there must be something fishy about Mount Joyao. No matter what, we must stop them. The Dongi tribe has limited experts. With our strength, it should be enough. Chun Quan analyzed. Everyone nodded. Chapter 154. Soon, Mount Joyao came into view. Mount Joyao was more than 3,000 meters tall and covered with strange rocks. Among them, there were 9 huge rocks, each of which was 50 to 60 meters tall. They were shaped like demonic beasts, hence the name Mount Joyao. At this moment, more than 200 people were gathered under a tiger-shaped rock. There were men and women, most of whom were middle-aged men and women. The men were topless, and the women were wrapped in animal skins. They were obviously from the Dongi tribe. At this moment, a few Dongi elders surrounded the tiger-shaped rock and smeared blood on it. It's the Dongi tribe. They're carving inscriptions. Chun Quan shouted, Go down and stop them. Caw! The Gale Eagle screeched and rushed toward the Dongi tribe. It's the disciples of the Mystic Essence Sword Sect. Kill them. We can't let them ruin our plan to open the ancestral ruins. Kill them. The Dongi tribe used to rule the Blazing Sun Empire. As long as we get the treasures in the ancestral ruins, we'll rise again and rule the Blazing Sun Empire. Roars rang out one after another, accompanied by incomparably sharp arrows. Swoosh! Swoosh! Hundreds of arrows streaked across the sky and shot toward the 5 Gale Eagles. Stop them! The disciples of the Mystic Essence Sword Sect sent out sword chi, saber chi, and fist energy to block the arrows. However, these arrows were shot by martial arts experts, and most of them were shot by martial grandmasters. They were imbued with powerful true chi. Although the Dongi tribe disciples tried their best to block them, many of the arrows still penetrated their defenses. Puff! Puff! Many of the arrows hit the Gale Eagles. Oh no! The disciples of the Mystic Essence Sword Sect were shocked. They had no choice but to jump off the Gale Eagles and use body lightning technique to descend. However, this made them easy targets for the Dongi tribe. Kill! The Eastern barbarians roared, and another wave of arrows shot toward them. The Mystic Essence Sword Sect disciples roared and tried their best to block the arrows. However, they were in the air and could only use their true chi to block the arrows. Ah! Ah! Miserable cries rang out as 5 or 6 disciples with weaker cultivations had their bodies pierced by arrows. Their hearts and other parts of their bodies fell to the ground. Whoosh! Whoosh! At this time, Lu Ming's high air steps displayed a mysterious power. When he stepped on the air, it was as if he was stepping on solid objects. A wave of energy was generated, and Lu Ming's figure floated, dodging several arrows. However, he had only cultivated to the 3rd level and could not last for long. But it was enough. With a few leaps, Lu Ming charged toward the Dongi tribe. Whoosh! Whoosh! Another wave of arrows shot over like shooting stars, incomparably fast. The arrows pierced through the air, bringing with them sharp and terrifying whistling sounds. Moon seizing, Lu Ming swept out with his spear, sweeping away the dozens of arrows in front of him. What a powerful force! Lu Ming felt his wrist go numb. A few more screams came from the sky. More people from the Mystic Essence Sword sect were hit by arrows. At this point, however, they were already close to the Eastern barbarians. Kill! Kill these Eastern barbarians! The disciples of the Mystic Essence Sword sect shouted angrily, launching powerful attacks downward. The Eastern barbarians put away their bows and unsheathed their swords, slashing out a pale white blade light. Boom! Boom! A series of explosions rang out. The disciples of the Mystic Essence Sword sect borrowed the force of their attacks to reduce the force of their fall. They landed on the ground and engaged in a fierce battle with the Eastern barbarians. It had to be said that the Eastern barbarians had sent many experts this time. At least 100 of them were martial grandmasters. The rest were high-level martial grandmasters. However, the disciples of the Mystic Essence Sword sect were, after all, disciples of a large sect. Their combat strength was higher than that of ordinary people. For a moment, the battle was difficult to determine who would win. Hold on. The ancestral ruins is about to open. An elder of the Eastern barbarians shouted. Kill! The battle between the two sides was extremely fierce. There were 6 or 7 4th-level martial grandmasters among the Eastern barbarians. Chun Quan and the others were completely entangled. Clang! Lu Ming swept out with his spear. 3 of the Eastern barbarians, above the 7th level of martial grandmaster, were sent flying. Their bones were broken, and they were no longer breathing. Little bastard, you're courting death. A 50-year-old Eastern barbarian slashed at Lu Ming with his saber. Landslide! Lu Ming swept out with his spear and exchanged a blow with his opponent. The two of them were pushed back by the force of the collision. 4th-level martial grandmaster. Lu Ming's eyes flickered. His opponent was even more shocked. He saw that Lu Ming was only a 1st-level martial grandmaster. He thought that he would be able to finish him off with one blow. He didn't expect that they would be evenly matched. A genius. A peerless genius of the Mystic Essence Sword sect. Good. Killing such a genius is enough to make the Mystic Essence Sword sect's heart ache. The man licked his lips. His eyes flashed with violence. Chi-Chi, the Eastern barbarian, slashed out a dozen times. The pale white saber light enveloped Lu Ming's vital points. Fire dance. With a flick of his spear, flowers of flame appeared, beautiful and dangerous. Bang! Bang! A series of rapid explosions sounded. The flowers of fire dissipated, and the saber light was defeated. Chasing lightning. Without any hesitation, Lu Ming's spear pierced toward his opponent's throat like lightning. Whoosh! The other party's saber actually started to spin in his hands, transforming into a snow-white full moon formed by saber gleams. Lu Ming's long spear pierced over, but was deflected with a clang. Beast Hunter's 18 slashes. The burly man from the Dongi tribe charged toward Lu Ming again. Lu Ming also attacked with his spear. In the blink of an eye, the two exchanged dozens of blows. Gradually, Lu Ming gained the upper hand. Lu Ming had the power of fire, coupled with the astral fire spear art. His attacks were like a volcanic eruption, coupled with his extremely condensed vital energy. He was extremely violent. The other party was only an early-stage fourth-grade martial master and was gradually losing. Buzz. At this moment, the tiger-shaped stone suddenly emitted a bright light. Ha! The ancestral ruins are open. An elder from the eastern barbarian tribe laughed. The tiger-shaped stone shone brightly. Slowly, it condensed into a 10-meter-tall and 3-meter-wide light gate. Kill them all. We'll go to the ruins. The elders from the eastern barbarian tribe, who had been smearing the blood of the demonic beasts on their bodies, roared. Each of them released a powerful aura and charged toward the mystic essence sword sect disciples. Of the 5 people, 2 of them actually had the cultivation of the 5th level of the martial master realm. The other 3 also had the cultivation of the 4th level of the martial master realm. Once they joined the battle, the mystic essence sword sect disciples were at a disadvantage. In a few breaths' time, 5 or 6 of their disciples were killed. Charge! Charge toward that light! Lu Ming suddenly shouted. Since they couldn't win, they might as well charge toward the treasure. Perhaps they could turn the tables. Yes, charge! The mystic essence sword sect disciples roared and charged toward the light gate. Damn it! Stop them! As expected, the eastern barbarians panicked. They roared and tried their best to stop the mystic essence sword sect disciples. Chapter 155. Hold it right there. The Dongi tribeman roared and chased after Lu Ming. I'll send you on your way. Lu Ming, who was sprinting ahead, suddenly stopped and thrust his spear at the Dongi tribeman. This was extremely sudden. The Dongi tribeman thought that Lu Ming was going to rush to the light door with all his might, but he did not expect to see him coming back. In a hurry, the Dongi tribeman slashed out with his saber to block the attack. Explode! Lu Ming whispered in a cold voice. His sprinting was fake. His real intention was to accumulate power. Boom! Violent energy exploded from the tip of the spear and blasted towards the Dongi tribeman. In a hurry, the Dongi tribeman could not block it at all. He spat out a mouthful of blood and was thrown back, chasing lightning. Whoosh! Lu Ming cast chasing thunder, coupled with the high air steps. He was even faster. The spear pierced through the Dongi tribeman's throat. Devour! Lu Ming controlled his bloodline and devoured the Dongi tribeman's blood essence in an instant. The Dongi tribeman was a 4th-grade martial master. The essence of his blood essence was extremely rich and was constantly being refined by the devouring spirit bloodline to replenish the true qi he had used to execute explode. Lu Ming did not stop and ran towards the light door. At this time, many mystic essence sword sect disciples had already rushed in. Stop him! A few martial master 1st grade and 2nd grade martial masters wanted to stop him, but Lu Ming's spear swept out, and they coughed out blood and flew back. In a few breaths, Lu Ming was close to the light door. Lu Ming, save me! Suddenly, a cry for help came from behind. Lu Ming turned around and saw that it was Du Feng. He was surrounded by a few experts from the Dongi tribe. You should deal with it yourself. Lu Ming smiled as he turned around and walked towards the light door. Behind him, Du Feng's roar of despair could be heard. The moment he stepped through the door, the world spun around him. When he recovered, Lu Ming found himself standing on a piece of gravel. Behind him was a stone wall, and on the stone wall there was another door of light, exactly the same as the previous door. The only difference was that the surroundings had changed. Kill! A blade light rushed towards Lu Ming, but Lu Ming brandished his long spear and blocked the blade light. All around, there were still shouts of killing. The disciples of the mystic essence sword sect rushed in, but so did the experts of the Dongi tribe. Charge forward. We'll charge towards the forest in front of us. As long as we get into the forest, we won't be afraid of them. A disciple of the Mystic Essence Sword sect, who was in the fourth layer of the Martial Grandmaster realm, shouted, "Let's go, we'll bring up the rear." Chun Quan shouted, "You want to leave? All of you stay here." The two fifth-level Martial Grandmasters of the Dongi tribe attacked with all their might. The 5 fourth-level Martial Grandmasters of the Mystic Essence Sword sect resisted with all their might, buying time for the others. Although the competition between the 4 great schools was fierce, and it was normal for them to fight each other, they were all disciples of the Mystic Essence Sword sect. At this moment of life and death, they knew that only by working together would they have a chance to survive. If they fought separately, only death would await them. Rumble! The true chi in Lu Ming's body was surging. The blood essence of the 4th-level Martial Grandmaster was constantly being refined, turning into turbulent energy that poured into Lu Ming's body. It was constantly being converted into true chi by Lu Ming. The true chi that Lu Ming had used to explode just now was recovered in a few breaths. The remaining majestic energy was helping Lu Ming to break through to the next realm. Lu Ming fought while breaking through to the next realm. Bang! A second-level Martial Grandmaster of the Dongi tribe was shaken by Lu Ming to the point that he coughed up blood and almost exploded. At the same time, Lu Ming's body trembled, and his cultivation broke through to the mid-stage of the first-level Martial Grandmaster. The blood essence of a 4th-level Martial Grandmaster was too thick. It was at least equal to the blood essence of 70 or 80 first-level Martial Grandmasters. Lu Ming's cultivation was still rapidly increasing. Boom! Boom! Lu Ming brandished his long spear and dashed toward Chun Quan, and the rest at full speed. "Little bastard, I'll kill you!" An elder from the Dongi tribe charged toward Lu Ming. He was also a 4th-level martial master. Boom! However, he was forced to retreat after exchanging a blow with Lu Ming. So strong? The Dongi tribe elder was shocked. Explode! Since he had a lot of true chi in his body, Lu Ming was not afraid of wasting it. He used another explode. With the breakthrough in his cultivation, this move was even more powerful. One of the Dongi tribe elders' arms was blown off, and he almost died. He wanted to retreat in fear, but Lu Ming was faster. He stabbed him with his spear and at the same time controlled his bloodline and devoured his blood essence. Kill him first. A 5th-level Martial Grandmaster of the Dongi tribe was furious and rushed toward Lu Ming. However, Lu Ming used the high steps and did not want to be entangled with him. In a few flashes, he dashed to the side of Chun Quan and the rest. Landslide! Lu Ming jumped high and smashed his long spear toward another 5th-level Martial Grandmaster of the Dongi tribe. Boom! There was an earth-shattering explosion, and Lu Ming's body drifted backward from the impact. Run! After being blocked by Lu Ming, Chun Quan, and the others finally escaped and ran toward the forest. Similarly, Lu Ming did not continue fighting. He ran toward the forest. Chase, chase! The Dongi tribe roared. More than 100 people continued to chase after Lu Ming and the others. In just 5 minutes, Lu Ming and the others arrived at the forest. In the forest, ancient trees towered into the sky, and old vines curled around. It was a scene of a primitive forest. The other disciples of the Mystic Essence Sword sect had already rushed in. Lu Ming and the others did not hesitate and rushed in as well. Whoosh! Whoosh! Running in the dense forest made it easy for them to hide. At the same time, the other party could not form an encirclement very well. Damn it! The Dongi tribe stopped in front of the forest and did not continue the chase. The battle strength of the Mystic Essence Sword sect's disciples was extremely shocking. They had a lot of methods. Just now, the two fifth-level martial master experts had joined forces, along with a few fourth-level martial master experts, but they were unable to kill the 5 fourth-level martial master youths. They only managed to injure a few of them. In the end, a fourth-level martial grandmaster was killed by a first-level martial grandmaster. This made them extremely frightened. It could be said that the mystic essence sword sect strength was not much weaker than theirs. If they rushed into the forest, they would probably be ambushed. Let's ignore them for now. Let's find the treasure left behind by our ancestors and quickly leave this place. Once we hide in the depths of the coastal mountains, the mystic essence sword sect will not be able to do anything to us. A fifth-level martial grandmaster elder suggested. Okay, let's do that. After the discussion, they left and headed deeper into the mountains. In the forest, Lu Ming and the others ran quickly. After running for about 10 miles, they stopped. It seems that the Dongi tribe did not chase after us. Chun Quan exhaled. His face was a little pale. Obviously, he had been injured in the battle just now. The others were not in a good state either. They had more or less suffered some injuries. After all, the other party had 2 fifth-level martial grandmasters. It was already good that they could hold them back for a short period of time. At this time, the surrounding mystic essence sword sect disciples slowly gathered. In the end, they found that there were only 61 people left. When they came, there were 102 people. Chapter 156. They had lost 41 people in this battle. These were all silver-ranked disciples, martial grandmasters. Even for a large sect like the Mystic Essence Sword sect, losing 41 martial grandmasters was a great loss. None of them spoke a word. After waiting for a dozen or so minutes, Chun Quan and the others relaxed when they saw that the Dongi tribe hadn't chased after them. They each found a place to recuperate. Lu Ming also flew up to a big tree. He circulated the true dragon fighting art and began to refine the blood essence that he had just devoured. He had devoured the essence blood of 2 fourth-level martial grandmasters. The essence blood of 2 fourth-level martial grandmasters contained an unimaginable amount of energy. It was equivalent to the essence blood of 150 first-level martial grandmasters. Such a large amount of essence blood could not be refined in a short time. Hu, the spirit-devouring bloodline, seemed to be breathing. Every time it exhaled, a large amount of energy would enter Lu Ming's body. Lu Ming's cultivation increased rapidly. Peak of the mid-stage of the first-level martial grandmaster, late stage of the first-level martial grandmaster. After 2 hours, Lu Ming had refined all the essence blood and turned it into his true qi. Lu Ming's cultivation had reached the peak of the first-level martial grandmaster. Lu Ming smiled bitterly. This was equivalent to the essence blood of 150 first-level martial grandmasters. In other words, the essence blood of 150 first-level martial grandmasters was not enough for him to break through to the next level. It was only enough for him to reach the peak of the first-level martial grandmaster. The third level of the true dragon art required too much energy to raise one's cultivation. It was dozens of times more than an ordinary person. He did not know how much energy he would need to raise his cultivation to the 4th, 5th, or even the 8th or 9th level. Thinking of this, Lu Ming could only smile bitterly. He shook his head and cast these thoughts aside. It was useless to think so far ahead. Lu Ming stopped and jumped down from the tree. Junior brother, Lu Ming. Chun Quan saw Lu Ming and called out. His complexion was better than before. It was obvious that he had recovered a lot after healing. Beside him were 4th-level martial grandmasters from the other 3 academies. The few of them gathered together and seemed to be discussing something. Lu Ming walked over. "What is this place?" "Just now, I heard the Dongi people shouting something about ancestral ruins. The fourth-level martial master of the Black Tortoise Academy, named Sun Ruo, said with a frown, I once read about it in an ancient book. Legend has it that a long time ago, at least 10,000 years ago, the Burning Sun Empire was ruled by the Eastern barbarians. Chun Quan pondered for a moment and said, What? The Burning Sun Empire was once ruled by the Eastern barbarians? The rest of the group was shocked. The Eastern barbarians were just a small tribe in the mountains near the sea. They only had a population of a few million. How could they possibly rule over the vast territory of the Burning Sun Empire? Chun Quan thought for a moment and said, That is indeed what is recorded in the records. It is said that the Eastern barbarians were very powerful in the past. They ruled not only the Burning Sun Empire, but also a few empires near the Burning Sun Empire. They were extremely powerful. The few of them were extremely shocked. It was obvious that this was the first time they had heard of such a story. Unfortunately, in the end, they still fell apart. After tens of thousands of years, the Dongi tribe has completely declined and become a small tribe. Chun Quan sighed. No matter how powerful a force was, it could not withstand the erosion of time. It was only a matter of time before it declined. In that case, this should be the ruins left behind by the Dongi tribe. The eyes of a young man from the White Tiger Hall suddenly lit up. The others did the same. This place was filled with mountains and forests and was full of vitality. It was very likely that this was a small realm. It was not difficult to guess that this was probably left behind by the experts of the Dongi tribe. Since the Dongi tribe was so powerful in the past, what kind of treasures would they leave behind in this small realm? Fortuitous encounter, fortuitous encounter. The few of them roared in their hearts. At the same time, their eyes lit up. Junior brothers, since the Dongi tribe is not chasing after us, there is no danger for the time being. I think we should split up. A young man from the White Tiger Hall suggested. I agree. The young experts from the Azure Dragon Hall agreed. If they moved together, how would they split the treasures and opportunities that they encountered? Naturally, everyone began to make plans. All right, then it's decided. In the end, they made up their minds to split up and search for their own opportunities. Whoosh, whoosh. Very quickly, the disciples of the four great academies split into twos and threes, each of them choosing a direction and disappearing into the mountain forest. Junior brother Lu Ming, do you want to move together? Chun Quan looked at Lu Ming. Lu Ming shook his head and said with a smile, No, I'd better go by myself. Then, Junior brother Lu, take care. Chun Quan cupped his fists and left with the others. Soon, Lu Ming was the only one left. Lu Ming pondered for a while. Then, he moved and headed out of the forest. Soon, he was out of the forest. He looked at the footprints on the ground and chased after the Dongi tribe. Since this was a ruin left behind by the ancestors of the Dongi tribe must know a lot about it. Instead of searching around like a headless fly, it would be better to follow the Dongi tribe and rob them along the way. Wouldn't that be better? Lu Ming used the airborne steps and moved like a gust of wind. He was extremely fast. A plane was actually a world. However, the laws of heaven and earth in this world were not complete and had all kinds of flaws. Moreover, it was not very big. That was why it was called a plane. According to its size, a plane was divided into small, medium, and large planes. Now, this plane was only a small plane. However, it was small compared to the divine wilderness continent. In fact, this plane was no less than a few thousand miles wide. Lu Ming ran for over 1,000 miles before he finally heard some movement. There was the sound of a great battle ahead. Lu Ming did not stop and headed in the direction of the sound. Soon, a dilapidated palace appeared in front of Lu Ming. It was obvious that the palace was very large and occupied a large area. However, it had been there for too long and was very dilapidated. Many places had collapsed. At this moment, there was an intense battle at the entrance of the palace. More than a dozen Dongi tribe members were fighting 8 monsters. Lu Ming could tell at a glance that the Dongi tribe members were all martial grandmasters. Among them, there were 2 4th-grade martial grandmasters and 4 3rd-grade martial grandmasters. However, even with so many experts, they only had a slight advantage over the 8 monsters. This was because the 8 monsters were very abnormal. The 8 monsters had shed their hair, revealing their skinny muscles that seemed to be filled with a metallic luster. Every monster's eyes were bloodshot, and they roared in a low voice. They didn't care about their own lives as they pounced on the Dongi experts. Chapter 157. These are demonic corpse puppets, refined by our ancestors. They are fearless and only know how to attack. Their bodies are as hard as steel and invulnerable. Their only weakness is their eyes. Attack their eyes. An elder of the Dongi tribe shouted, "Kill! Kill!" Led by 2 4th-grade martial grandmasters, more than a dozen Dongi experts attacked the eyes of the 8 demonic corpse puppets with all their might. Roar! Soon, the eyes of one of the demonic beasts were shattered. It roared and fell to the ground. After finding a way, the Dongi experts worked together and defeated the 8 demonic beasts one by one. Let's go in. If I'm not wrong, this must be a very important place. An old man from the Dongi tribe shouted excitedly. More than a dozen Dongi tribesmen rushed inside excitedly. After the Dongi experts left, Lu Ming appeared and followed them into the palace. Lu Ming's footsteps landed silently. He followed the Dongi experts a dozen meters behind, holding his breath. The Dongi experts did not notice him at all. After passing through many courtyards, they arrived at a large hall in the middle. From afar, they could see the door of the hall open, revealing the bookshelves in the hall. Ha! This is the library. There must be secret manuals here. This is great. There is hope for the revival of the Dongi tribe. An old man from the Dongi tribe shouted excitedly. The Dongi experts were so excited that they were about to rush into the hall. Roar! Roar! 2 huge demonic beasts rushed out of the hall, emitting a murderous aura. They were as fast as lightning. 2 cries of agony rang out as the 2 Dongi men were torn in half by the 2 demonic beasts. Blood and organs splattered everywhere. More demonic corpse puppets. Be careful! With a roar, 2 4th-grade martial grandmasters pounced on the 2 demonic beasts. The 2 demonic beasts were hairless, but their muscles were as hard as metal. Die, evil beasts! The 2 elders roared and slashed at the eyes of the 2 demonic beasts with their swords. However, these 2 demonic corpse puppets were obviously stronger than the previous ones. They reached out their claws and blocked the swords. The demonic corpse puppets roared and charged at the Dongi experts with a murderous aura. They were not afraid of death. Bang! Bang! Several of the Dongi tribe's 1st realm and 2nd realm martial grandmasters were sent flying by the demonic beasts. Only those who were 3rd realm martial grandmasters and above could fight head-on. For a time, the Dongi tribe and the 2 demonic beasts were locked in a fierce battle. At that instant, a figure silently passed by the crowd like a gust of wind and charged into the hall. Who? Damn it! Stop right there! A 4th-level martial master elder roared as a sharp saber light slashed towards the figure. This figure was, of course, Lu Ming. Of course, he would not let go of such an opportunity. Clang! The long spear swept out and blocked the old man's saber. Lu Ming borrowed the momentum and rushed into the hall even faster. You guys have fun. I'll be leaving first. Lu Ming laughed loudly and leaped into the main hall. The Dongi tribe roared angrily. "You guys rush in and kill that little bastard. We'll block these two demonic corpse devil puppets." Two fourth-level martial grandmasters roared as they activated their bloodline and blocked the two demonic corpse devil puppets with all their strength. The others took the opportunity to rush into the hall. "Little bastard, go to hell!" A third-level martial grandmaster roared as his killing intent surged. His saber carried a rolling saber light and swept towards Lu Ming. Whoosh! However, what greeted him was a lightning-like spear light. Puchi! Blood splattered everywhere as Lu Ming's spear pierced through the man's heart. A third-level martial grandmaster was easily killed by Lu Ming. Then, the long spear swept out, and the two second-level martial grandmasters were sent flying. They were no longer breathing. In the blink of an eye, 3 experts had been killed. Retreat! The others turned pale with fright and hurriedly retreated. "Let's kill these two demonic beasts together, and then kill that little bastard. He can't escape." A fourth-level martial grandmaster elder roared. The Dongi tribe fought against the two demonic beasts with all their strength. In the hall, Lu Ming's eyes lit up as he looked around. There were more than 10 bookshelves in the hall. Lu Ming glanced at them and revealed a disappointed expression. Most of the bookshelves were empty. How could there be any secret manuals? They were probably taken away by the Dongi tribe back then. "Hey, there's a box over there." Lu Ming saw a black box in an inconspicuous corner of the hall. Lu Ming's eyes lit up as he hurriedly walked over. The box was made of some unknown metal. It was black and rusty. Lu Ming's true chi surged out, and the box opened. Immediately, stacks of books appeared in front of Lu Ming. There were more than 10 of them. Lu Ming's eyes lit up as he quickly picked up a book. These secret manuals were obviously not made of ordinary paper. They were made of an unknown material that was extremely tough. After so many years, they were still intact. He opened it and saw that it was a sword technique. Tiger Roar Sword Technique. Superior Yellow Level Martial Technique. The words inside were revealed. It's only a superior Yellow Level Martial Technique. Lu Ming was slightly disappointed as he flipped through the other secret manuals. Most of these secret manuals were Yellow Level Martial Techniques. There were a total of 32 books. Among them, there were 20 inferior Yellow Level Martial Techniques and 10 superior Yellow Level Martial Techniques. There were only 2 inferior Black Level Martial Techniques, and they were both saber techniques. Lu Ming could not use them at all. Lu Ming was greatly disappointed. No wonder they were placed in a box in a corner and were not taken away. They must have been thrown here like trash. Lu Ming shook his head with a bitter smile. "Am I being too greedy? These secret manuals, although of low level, can be sold for at least tens of millions of silver taels." Lu Ming's eyes lit up as he thought about it. If these secret manuals were exchanged for contribution points in the contribution hall, they would be worth at least a few 100,000 contribution points. This was already a huge gain. With a thought, Lu Ming kept all the secret manuals in the Temple of Paragon. "Little bastard, hand over the secret manuals or die." At that moment, the Dongi tribesmen had finally killed the 2 demonic corpse puppets and rushed into the main hall. When they saw the empty bookshelves, their eyes turned red as they looked at Lu Ming with burning desire. The bookshelves were empty, so Lu Ming must have taken them. Lu Ming did not bother to explain. He sneered and said, "I didn't want to fight with you just now. Do you really think I'm afraid of you?" Bam! Lu Ming took a step forward and rushed toward the Dongi tribesman like the wind. "Kill him!" The Dongi tribesman roared and charged toward Lu Ming. led by two fourth-grade martial masters. There were 10 of them working together. It was a terrifying sight. Lu Ming moved and dodged the front. In a flash, he appeared at the side. Fire dance! Flowers of flame appeared. When the flowers of flame dissipated, 3 of the Dongi tribesmen fell to the ground. Their throats had been pierced by spears. Kill! Chapter 158. Whoosh! Lu Ming swept out with his spear. True Qi burst out, shattering all the rubble and debris in the air. However, the 2 old men did not stop there. They continued to slash at Lu Ming. Lu Ming held the long spear in his hand and placed it in front of him. Clang! The 2 old men's sabers slashed at Lu Ming's spear, causing a shocking shockwave. Lu Ming's expression changed. His body trembled as he staggered back. He can't hold on any longer. Kill him! The 2 old men were overjoyed when they saw that Lu Ming was forced back. They attacked Lu Ming even more desperately. The remaining 5 Dongi tribesmen roared furiously and charged toward Lu Ming. For a moment, Lu Ming was attacked from all directions. He seemed to be at a disadvantage and kept retreating. Soon, he retreated to a corner near the exit. Kill him, and all the secret manuals here will be ours. Our Dongi tribe will rise. A 4th-level martial master old man shouted excitedly. The other Dongi people were also excited. At this moment, a sharp sound broke through the air from the door beam above them. A sword light quickly pierced toward Lu Ming's back. This sword light was fast, accurate, ruthless, and extremely powerful. This was because its owner was a 4th-level martial master expert and a genius of the White Tiger Hall. That's right. The person who launched the sneak attack was one of the 2 4th-level martial masters from the White Tiger Hall. He had been hiding on the door beam since an unknown time. Go to hell, Lu Ming. Don't blame me. Blame yourself for offending the Duanmu clan. As long as I kill you, the Duanmu clan will definitely put me in an important position. A cold and vicious light flashed in the eyes of the young expert from the White Tiger Hall. It was as if he could already see Lu Ming dying at his hands. The Duanmu clan controlled the White Tiger Hall. Most of the disciples who joined the White Tiger Hall chose to rely on the Duanmu clan. Only by relying on the Duanmu clan could they obtain better cultivation resources. Of course, a pervert like Ling Kong who had a strong backing was an exception. But at this moment, he suddenly saw Lu Ming's lips curl into a smile. That kind of smile gave off the feeling that some kind of scheme had succeeded. Sure enough, he has made a move. Good, let's get rid of him together. The corners of Lu Ming's mouth curled into a sneer, and his eyes flashed with killing intent. He hadn't used his full strength in the battle with the Dongi tribe. Otherwise, with his cultivation at the peak of the 1st layer of the martial master realm, he would not have been forced into such a sorry state by 2 4th-layer martial masters and 5 3rd and 2nd-layer martial masters. Everything that happened just now was just an act. In fact, the young man from the White Tiger Hall had followed the Dongi tribe in. Lu Ming had noticed him as soon as he entered. However, he didn't say anything because he could sense the killing intent of the young man from the White Tiger Hall. Therefore, he pretended that he was no match for his opponent and was completely at a disadvantage. He even sent himself in front of his opponent in order to lure his opponent into attacking him. As expected, the young man from the White Tiger Hall fell into his trap. He thought that he saw a good opportunity and decisively attacked, wanting to kill Lu Ming. However, all of this was within Lu Ming's expectations. Boom! At this moment, Lu Ming's bloodline erupted, and Lu Ming's aura skyrocketed. At the same time, the true qi in his body erupted. Moon seizing. Lu Ming didn't even look at the young man from the White Tiger Hall. He held the end of his spear and swept it out. Buzz! The long spear swept past the sabers of the Dongi tribe with a terrifying aura. The Dongi tribe's bodies shook violently, and they quickly retreated with a groan. Lu Ming's long spear didn't stop, and he continued to sweep it towards the young man from the White Tiger Hall. How can this be? The young man from the White Tiger Hall's pupils contracted rapidly. He had charged at Lu Ming with all his might, and it was too late for him to retreat now. He could only grit his teeth and unleash his full strength. The long sword in his hand emitted a powerful sword chi, and he attacked Lu Ming. Boom! However, Lu Ming's long spear easily destroyed his opponent's sword chi. At the same time, the long spear bent in an arc and heavily struck the young man from the White Tiger Hall. Crack! The sound of bones breaking could be heard. The young man from the White Tiger Hall screamed in agony, and his body was sent flying. He coughed out large mouthfuls of blood in the air. Die! Lu Ming stomped his foot on the ground, and his body spun rapidly as he flew backward. The long spear in his hand spun rapidly and stabbed at the young man from the White Tiger Hall. Junior brother Lu Ming, don't! The young man from the White Tiger Hall was horrified, and he screamed in fear. However, the long spear didn't stop. Poof! The long spear pierced the young man's heart and lifted him into the air. Lu Ming! Lu Ming, you're so cruel! The young man from the White Tiger Hall glared at Lu Ming with resentment. If you didn't want to kill me, you wouldn't have been killed by my spear. You asked for it. Lu Ming said indifferently. If the young man didn't want to kill him, he wouldn't have been killed by Lu Ming in 2 moves. After all, the young man was a genius from the White Tiger Hall, and his combat strength wasn't weak. The young man from the White Tiger Hall was unwilling to accept his defeat. The vitality in his body gradually dissipated. Oh no, he was hiding his strength. Retreat! The Dongi tribesmen were terrified. One of the elders shouted. He clearly saw that the person who launched the sneak attack was a Realm 4 martial master. However, he was killed by Lu Ming in an instant. Lu Ming's strength was too terrifying. It's too late for you to leave now. Lu Ming controlled his bloodline and devoured the essence blood of the young man from the White Tiger Hall. Then his body flashed, and he charged toward the Dongi tribesmen. You guys leave quickly. I'll stop him. An elder from the Dongi tribesmen shouted angrily and turned around to attack Lu Ming. Explode! Lu Ming didn't hesitate to use his strongest move. At this moment, he was in the bloodline eruption stage. When he used the explode move, its power was extremely terrifying. The elder from the Dongi tribesmen didn't even have time to scream before half of his body exploded. Whoosh whoosh! At this moment, Lu Ming's aura dropped rapidly. The time for the bloodline eruption was up. The remaining Dongi tribesmen were even more terrified and ran for their lives. Lu Ming stopped and didn't chase after them. The time for the bloodline eruption had passed, and his combat strength had weakened. Even if he chased after them, he wouldn't be able to kill them all. Lu Ming immediately devoured the essence blood of the dead Dongi tribesmen. Not only that, but he also obtained 5 storage rings. As a martial master, it was normal for him to have a storage ring. It could be said that a storage ring was the standard of a martial grandmaster. If a martial grandmaster did not even have a storage ring, then he would be in a miserable state. After putting away the storage rings, Lu Ming moved and left the main hall. After a few breaths, Lu Ming appeared in a small room in the main hall. Lu Ming entered the Temple of Paragon and prepared to refine the essence blood. However, Lu Ming's expression suddenly changed. He realized that the chanting sound had disappeared. In the depths of the Temple of Paragon, there was a strange chanting sound. under this chanting sound. Lu Ming's mind was exceptionally clear, and he was able to comprehend martial techniques at a rapid pace. Chapter 159. Ever since Lu Ming had obtained the Temple of Paragon, the chanting had accompanied Lu Ming for more than a year. The reason why Lu Ming could rise so quickly was because of the chanting. Although Lu Ming did not know where the chanting came from, he seemed to have gotten used to it. As long as he wanted to comprehend martial techniques, he would enter the Temple of Paragon and comprehend martial techniques while listening to the chanting. When did it disappear? Lu Ming furrowed his brows. Is it because I broke through to the martial Grand Master realm? Lu Ming thought. Speaking of which, Lu Ming had not entered the Temple of Paragon ever since he had broken through to the martial Grand Master realm. After breaking through, Lu Ming had accepted the mission to exterminate the Dongyi tribe and rushed to Dongke City through the night. After arriving at Dongke City, Lu Ming had stayed in the military camp for the first few days. Since there were so many people, Lu Ming naturally did not enter the Temple of Paragon. After that, the Dongyi tribe attacked the city. In order to pursue the Dongyi tribe, he had come to this plain. During this process, Lu Ming had not entered the Temple of Paragon even once. Now that he thought about it, it was most likely because he had broken through to the martial Grand Master realm. As expected, it still disappeared. After a while, Lu Ming shook his head and sighed. In fact, he had already expected this result, since the chanting had such a magical effect and was constantly emitting without stopping, regardless of whether it was man-made or some kind of array. It needed energy, and the energy would eventually be used up. Once it was used up, it would stop. However, he had not expected it to happen after he had broken through to the martial Grand Master realm. So what if there is no chanting? Lu Ming, will still be able to rise and comprehend martial techniques quickly. Lu Ming's eyes were filled with determination. Then he stopped thinking about it and started to refine the essence blood. This time, there were 2 first-layer martial grandmasters, 1 second-layer martial grandmaster, and 2 fourth-layer martial grandmasters. The blood chi essence was incomparably majestic. The huge amount of essence was converted into Zhen Qi. Within his dantian, the cyclone spun faster and faster, and the Zhen Qi grew stronger and stronger. Lu Ming began to break through to the second layer of the martial master realm. 3 hours later, a strong aura suddenly erupted from Lu Ming's body. However, in the blink of an eye, this aura was concealed, and Lu Ming opened his eyes. Second layer of martial master, breakthrough. A smile appeared on Lu Ming's face. In total, Lu Ming had swallowed the blood essence of 4 fourth-layer martial masters and a few second-layer and first-layer martial masters. Only then did he break through to the second-layer martial master realm. The amount of energy needed was truly terrifying. However, Lu Ming's bloodline level did not increase. It was still at level 5. It was getting harder and harder to raise the rank of his bloodline. But as long as he could improve, no matter how difficult it was, Lu Ming was confident that he could continue to improve. Now that my cultivation has broken through to the second-layer martial grandmaster realm, if I meet the 2 fifth-layer martial grandmasters of the Dongyi tribe again, I have no fear. I can even kill them. A confident smile appeared on Lu Ming's face. Let's see what's in their storage rings. Lu Ming moved his hand, and 5 storage rings appeared. These were all storage rings of the martial grandmasters. Lu Ming was looking forward to them. First, there was a first-layer martial grand master realm storage ring. The storage ring was very ordinary and could be considered the lowest grade storage ring. However, the items inside still made Lu Ming pleasantly surprised. Spiritual crystals. A whole box of spiritual crystals. There were at least 1,000 pieces. Every piece of spiritual crystal was milky white and emitted a dense spiritual qi. The box was neatly placed. Lu Ming's eyes lit up. Spiritual crystals could only be used by warriors above the martial Grandmaster realm because they were filled with dense spiritual qi of heaven and earth. Because this spiritual qi was gathered together, it was extremely ferocious and overbearing. If warriors below the martial Grandmaster realm used it to cultivate, they would easily explode and die. Spiritual crystals were the currency used by warriors above the martial Grand Master realm. Spiritual crystals were mainly divided into 4 grades: lower spiritual crystal, middle spiritual crystal, upper spiritual crystal, and supreme spiritual crystal. A piece of lower spiritual crystal was worth 10,000 taels of silver. The spiritual crystals of the first layer martial Grand Master, realm warrior, were all lower spiritual crystals. 1,000 of them were worth 10 million taels of silver. This was a huge fortune. Lu Ming was naturally pleasantly surprised. The Dongi tribe lived in the depths of the coastal mountains. They must have found spiritual crystal veins. They are indeed rich. Lu Ming sighed and looked forward to the remaining storage rings even more. A first-layer martial Grand Master already had 1,000 spiritual crystals. What about a second-layer martial Grand Master or a fourth-layer martial Grand Master? In addition to the spiritual crystals, there were a few spiritual weapons in this storage ring. They were all level 2 and were not particularly precious. After tidying up, Lu Ming looked at the next storage ring. This storage ring was also left behind by a first-layer martial Grand Master from the Dongi tribe. Inside, there was another box of spiritual crystals. There were a total of 1,200 pieces, more than the previous one. Lu Ming was even more delighted and continued to look. The next storage ring was left behind by a second-layer martial Grand Master. It did not disappoint Lu Ming. 3,000 pieces, a total of 3,000 pieces. Lu Ming's heart had already begun to tremble. He could not wait to look at the storage ring of the last 4th-level martial master martial artist. This storage ring was several times larger than the previous storage rings. Inside, there were several boxes. Lu Ming opened it, and his eyelids twitched. Spiritual crystals. They were all spiritual crystals. They were neatly arranged in rows. Lu Ming hurriedly counted. There were more than 11,000 pieces, all of which were lower spiritual crystals. Lu Ming sucked in a breath of cold air. Then he was ecstatic. The Dongi tribe must have found a spiritual crystal mine in the depths of the coastal mountain range. Otherwise, how could there be so many spiritual crystals? Normally, martial artists at the 1st, 2nd, or even 4th level of the martial Grandmaster realm would rarely have so many spirit crystals on them. This was because martial Grandmasters needed spirit crystals to cultivate. Even if they had spirit crystals, they would have already been used up. How could they have so many? The 4 Dongi tribe warriors had a total of 16,200 spiritual crystals. In terms of silver, it was more than 160 million taels of silver. What kind of enormous wealth was this? Ha! If these spiritual crystals were exchanged for contribution points, it would be enough for me to use for a while. Lu Ming could not help but laugh. Finally, Lu Ming looked at the storage ring of the young man from the White Tiger Hall. Sure enough, Lu Ming was disappointed. He was obviously a 4th-layer martial Grandmaster. In the storage ring, there were only a few spiritual weapons, some healing and cultivation elixirs. There were only more than 100 spiritual crystals and 3 million taels of silver. His wealth was not even comparable to a 1st-layer martial Grandmaster from the Dongi tribe. Needless to say, the disciples of the Mystic Essence Sword sect must have exchanged their wealth for contribution points. If I snatch all the storage rings from the Dongi tribe, how many spiritual crystals would I have? Lu Ming's eyes shone with hope. Chapter 160. Now that my cultivation has reached the martial grandmaster realm, I wonder if I can go up to the third platform. With this thought, Lu Ming's gaze turned to the third platform after the 99th step. That platform was empty except for a stone platform. Previously, Lu Ming had been unable to go up. Now that the chanting sound had disappeared, would he be able to ascend to the third platform? Lu Ming stood up and walked towards the third platform. Soon, he arrived at the 99th step. With one step, Lu Ming stepped onto the third platform without any hindrance. Sure enough, I'm up. Lu Ming's eyes lit up. There was a box on each of the first two platforms, which was of great help to Lu Ming. However, this platform was empty. What help could there be? Lu Ming looked around and walked around, but he didn't find anything. Finally, he came to the stone platform. It was a very ordinary square stone platform. However, there was a pit in the middle of the stone platform, which looked a little special. What's this for? Is it an array base? Or is it? Lu Ming looked carefully, but he still couldn't figure it out. This pit is similar to the size of the spiritual crystal. Lu Ming pondered. Then his palm glowed, and a spiritual crystal appeared in his hand. He wanted to try and put the spiritual crystal into the pit. Unexpectedly, as soon as he got close, a strong suction force came from the pit. The spiritual crystal in Lu Ming's hand flew out and into the pit. In the blink of an eye, it disappeared into the pit. Buzz. Then the pit shook slightly and a hazy light was emitted. However, the light only flashed and disappeared. Then it fell silent and there was no movement. What's going on? There was clearly movement just now. Could it be that I don't have enough spiritual crystals? If so, I'll continue to add. Lu Ming pondered and immediately took out another piece of spirit crystal. It was also sucked into the pit by the suction force. However, just like before, a light flashed on the stone platform and disappeared. Lu Ming continued to add spiritual crystals. 3, 4, 8, 9. When the 9th piece was added, a bright light shot up into the sky from the stone platform. Around the stone platform, mysterious inscriptions appeared. These inscriptions continued to spread until they covered the entire platform. Finally, a figure condensed on one side of the platform. The face of this figure could not be seen clearly as it stood there with a straight back. Condense a human figure? What is it for? Lu Ming was astonished and walked over. Let's do it. Fight me. The figure suddenly spoke. Lu Ming was stunned. He couldn't see the face of this figure. It could be said that it was formed from energy, but it could actually speak. Fight with you. Lu Ming asked. Let's do it. Fight me. The figure repeated the previous sentence without the slightest emotion, so it doesn't have any intelligence. Lu Ming heaved a sigh of relief. Then his eyes flickered. After thinking for a while, he suddenly threw out a punch. The Temple of Paragon was extremely mysterious. There must be a reason why he should give it a try, since the other party had asked for it. Boom. Lu Ming used the Flame Dragon Fist. However, what shocked Lu Ming was that the other party also threw out a punch at the same time. It was the Flame Dragon Fist. Boom. When the two fists collided, Lu Ming felt a scorching hot true qi surging toward him. He couldn't help but take 3 steps back. When he looked again, the other party had also taken 3 steps back. The true dragon of combat art. The other party is also using the true dragon of combat art. Lu Ming's eyes were filled with horror. Martial techniques could be imitated, but how could one imitate cultivation techniques? However, the other party was really using the true dragon of combat art. Lu Ming could not be wrong. Let's try again. Lu Ming threw out a few punches, but the other party also threw out a few punches. They were all using the Flame Dragon Fist. The two of them exchanged a few punches and then took a few steps back. There's no mistake. It's really the true dragon of combat art. Lu Ming's eyes were filled with disbelief. He felt that fighting with the other party was like fighting with himself. Then what about sword techniques? Lu Ming moved his hand, and a battle sword appeared. He used the flowing light sword technique and slashed at the other party. However, the other party also condensed a battle sword in his hand and used the flowing light sword technique. In fact, when Lu Ming used the airborne steps, the other party also used the airborne steps. Astral fire spear technique, chasing lightning. Lu Ming put away his combat sword and took out his fiery tongue spear, unleashing his strongest combat power. However, the other party used the astral fire spear technique, and his strength was no weaker than Lu Ming's. It could be said that he was exactly the same as Lu Ming. Whatever martial arts technique Lu Ming used, the figure would also use the same martial arts technique. Even the strength of the technique was the same. Lu Ming finally confirmed that the other party was actually himself, another him condensed by the inscription formation. He was fighting with himself. What a wonderful feeling. Lu Ming's eyes flickered. He had always been fighting with the enemy, but he had never fought with himself. Then let's have a big fight. In that case, Lu Ming was too lazy to think about it. He let go of his body and mind and erupted with all his strength to fight with the figure. However, no matter what means he used, the other party would also use it. No matter how strong he was, the other party was not inferior at all. He was completely himself. Boom, boom. In the blink of an eye, more than 300 moves had been exchanged, but there was still no winner. How could he win against himself? However, Lu Ming's face showed a surprised smile. Wonderful, wonderful. It turns out that there is such a flaw in my martial technique. Moreover, when I use my spear, I also have a bad habit. Lu Ming's eyes were full of ecstasy. In the great battle just now, he discovered his own shortcomings. After more than 300 moves in a row, he tried his best to find the other party's flaw and defeat him in every move. Wasn't finding the other party's flaw the same as finding his own flaw? He found that his spear technique, which he thought was perfect, actually had some shortcomings. Moreover, when he used his spear, he also had a bad habit. These were very subtle. Normally, it would be impossible to find out. Only when he fought with himself with all his strength could he find out. However, how could ordinary people fight with him? At this moment, Lu Ming realized that the figure condensed by the inscription array was more useful than the chanting of scriptures. How good could the cultivation and comprehension of martial techniques be if he fought with himself all the time? Lu Ming felt excited at the thought of it. Continue. Lu Ming recuperated for a while and continued to fight with this figure. Every time, Lu Ming attacked with all his strength. He exchanged hundreds of moves with the other party and only stopped when his genuine qi was exhausted. In this way, Lu Ming stopped 3 times in a row. That was because the figure had suddenly disappeared. He disappeared. What's going on? Chapter 161. Could it be because the spiritual crystals have been used up? Lu Ming thought it would definitely require energy to form such a figure and have an intense battle with him. Lu Ming walked to the stone platform and found that it had dimmed and returned to its original state. It seems that it needs spiritual crystals to operate. Lu Ming felt relieved after finding the problem. However, it was not the time to continue cultivating. He was still in the small plane. This was a small plane left behind by the ancestors of the Eastern barbarians. It might contain great opportunities, and Lu Ming did not want to miss it. I'll study it in the future. Lu Ming muttered. Then, he left the Temple of Paragon. Apart from the main hall, There are other places in this place that I haven't explored yet. I'll continue to explore before going to other places. Lu Ming moved and started to explore the dilapidated palace. Most of the palace was dilapidated and collapsed. Only a few places still looked okay. Unfortunately, Lu Ming searched more than 10 rooms, side halls, and main halls, but to no avail. It was empty. It seems that there's nothing left in this place. There's still the backyard. If I don't find anything, I'll leave this place. Lu Ming ran to the backyard. The backyard was very spacious, but it was barren and full of weeds. Lu Ming was disappointed. He shook his head and was about to leave. Suddenly, Lu Ming's eyes moved. There was a special place in the middle of the backyard. There was no grass in the area with a radius of 10 meters. It was barren, and right in the middle, there was a rusty iron rod stuck there. The other places were full of weeds, but this was the only place that was barren. It was too special. Lu Ming was very curious. He walked over and looked at it carefully. The ground was made of a kind of grayish-brown rock. It was very hard. Lu Ming stepped on it, and it did not move at all. There were no signs of it breaking. No wonder there was no grass. The iron rod was rusty. God knew how long it had been exposed to wind and rain. It's not an iron rod. It's a long spear. After looking at it carefully, Lu Ming was stunned. It was a long spear. However, the spearhead was stuck in the ground. Lu Ming mistook it for an iron rod. This long spear must be extraordinary. I can't miss it. Lu Ming's eyes flashed. Then he grabbed the long spear with both hands and pulled it out. The long spear shook slightly, but he did not pull it out. Lu Ming was taken aback. Although he did not use all his strength just now, the force of his pull was enough to lift up a huge rock that weighed 100,000 pounds. However, he could not pull out a long spear that was stuck in the ground. Lu Ming's eyes lit up. The more this was the case, the more extraordinary the spear was. With a loud shout, Lu Ming unleashed his full strength. Boom! His true chi was boiling, and there was a loud boom on the ground. Lu Ming's muscles were bulging. He had the strength to uproot mountains, and his aura was unparalleled. Clang! A clanging sound could be heard, and Lu Ming finally pulled out the long spear that was stuck in the ground. Roar! At this moment, there was a beast roar at the place where the long spear was pulled out. Then, a black shadow condensed from the ground. It was a huge black lizard. However, it was not a physical body. It was an illusory body. Roar! The huge lizard roared and pounced on Lu Ming. This is the soul of a demonic beast. Lu Ming was shocked. He quickly retreated. However, the black lizard was only halfway there when it suddenly exploded. It turned into wisps of black gas and dissipated. Phew! Lu Ming exhaled. It seemed that it was just a demonic beast's remnant soul. God knows how long it had been suppressed. It was so weak that it dissipated on its own. The scene fell into silence once more, and everything returned to normal. Lu Ming relaxed and looked at the long spear in his hand. The long spear was 8 feet long. The tip of the spear was 8 inches long. However, it was covered in rust. It was almost impossible to see its original appearance. However, the weight of the long spear was shocking. Lu Ming estimated that it was at least 10,000 pounds. This weight is not bad. Lu Ming held the long spear and waved it a few times. The long spear swept through the air and let out a rumbling sound. It was like thunder in the 9 heavens. What made Lu Ming very satisfied was that the softness and elasticity of the long spear were not bad. It was much better than the fire-tongue spear. Although he could not tell what level this long spear was, Lu Ming liked it very much just based on its weight and elasticity. There are words. At this moment, Lu Ming noticed that there were two small words on the shaft of the spear. Demon suppression. Looking carefully, he realized that it was the two words demon suppression. Demon suppression? Demon suppression spear. What a domineering name. Could it be that the demonic beast remnant soul of that lizard was the demonic beast suppressed by the demon suppression spear? Lu Ming thought. Then he waved it a few more times and felt that it was very comfortable. The only bad thing was that the body of the spear was rusty. It was very ugly, like a broken spear. Lu Ming planned to find an inscriber to refine it when he returned to the Mystic Essence Sword Sect. After putting away the demon suppression spear, Lu Ming looked around and did not find anything else. Lu Ming's figure flashed, and he left the place. At this moment, a few hundred miles away from Lu Ming, there was a majestic mountain peak. However, the mountain peak was surrounded by a thick fog. The fog was so thick that it could not be dispersed. Even if a martial artist's eyesight was better than an ordinary person's, he would not be able to see his fingers in the fog. At the outermost edge of the fog, there were hundreds of stone pillars. In front of the stone pillars stood dozens of figures. These were the experts of the Dongi tribe. At the very front stood 3 figures. 2 of them were the Dongi tribe's 5th-level martial grandmasters. The other was a figure wrapped in a black robe and a bamboo hat. He was so skinny that it was impossible to see his face clearly. However, the 2 5th-grade martial grandmasters seemed to be respectful to the man in the black robe and bamboo hat. If I'm not wrong, this mountain is the abode left behind by the Dongi tribe's king. Continue to carve inscriptions on the stone pillars according to my method. Soon, the formation will be broken and the fog will disperse. The man in the black robe and bamboo hat instructed, his voice low and hoarse. Yes, if the Dongi tribe can obtain the inheritance of our ancestor, we will never forget Senior's kindness. One of the 5th-grade martial grandmasters cupped his fists respectfully. Then, the 2 old men walked forward and began to carve inscriptions on the stone pillars. Half an hour later, the hundreds of stone pillars suddenly emitted a dazzling light. The fog around them also began to disperse slowly. At the scene, the Dongi tribesmen were ecstatic. Their eyes were burning with passion. Not long after, the fog dispersed completely. The mountain peak that had been hidden in the fog was finally revealed. It turned out to be a wolf-shaped mountain. The entire mountain was barren, as if it had been carved into a giant wolf by a giant boulder. Chapter 162. It was as if the wolf's mouth was the entrance to the abode. Ha ha! We've finally found the abode left behind by our ancestors. The heavens are on our side. The Dongi tribesmen cheered excitedly. All right, now that the formation at the entrance has been broken, let's go in together. The skinny black-robed man said in a low voice. The 2 Dongi 5th-level martial grandmasters glanced at each other. Their eyes flashed at the same time as they nodded inwardly. Senior, please leave the ruins and return to the army in Donkey City. One of the elders said. The skinny black-robed man was stunned. What do you mean? Senior, this is the ancestral land left behind by our ancestors. You're an outsider. It's not good for you to enter. The other elder said. I understand. You're going to burn the bridge after crossing it. The skinny black-robed man's voice was hoarse and low. That's not right. How can you say that we're burning the bridge after crossing it? We're just asking you to go back first. Once we get the treasures left behind by our ancestors, we'll reward you handsomely. One of the Dongi elders sneered. Ha! You're making it sound so righteous. I've finally realized that you Dongi tribesmen are despicable. If I hadn't provided you with the clues and formation patterns to break the formation, how could you have known where the entrance to the ruins was? How could you have broken the formation? Also, I left some men behind to help you block the geniuses of the Mystic Essence Sword sect. I've done my best. Now that we're about to succeed, you're going back on your word. I must be blind. The skinny black-robed man let out an unpleasant, hoarse laugh. Enough! An elder from the Dongi tribe shouted coldly. His face darkened as he said, "This time, you have indeed contributed. As I said earlier, you will be rewarded. Moreover, you sent people to stop the disciples of the Mystic Essence Sword sect, but it was useless. The Mystic Essence Sword sect still chased after us, causing us to suffer heavy losses. I haven't settled this debt with you yet. Also, don't think that I don't know your cultivation. I'm just being polite by calling you senior. You'd better know your place. Otherwise, you might not even be able to leave this place." As soon as he finished speaking, the other masters of the Dongi tribe stepped forward and surrounded the skinny black-robed man. Their eyes were filled with hostility. What a bunch of ungrateful people. No wonder the Dongi tribe has declined. But do you think I didn't have a backup plan? The skinny black-robed man sneered. In the next moment, his body suddenly moved. As fast as lightning, he pounced on a burly Dongi man of the martial Grandmaster realm. This time, the speed was too fast. Before the burly man could react, his throat was grabbed by the thin black-robed man. Zhenqi poured into the Dongi man's body. The Dongi man's body went limp, unable to resist at all. The skinny black-robed man's throat was gripped by the skinny black-robed man. The skinny black-robed man flashed and escaped the encirclement, retreating to the center of the stone pillars. "What are you doing? Let him go if you don't want to die." A fifth-level martial Grand Master Dongi Elder roared and rushed toward the skinny black-robed man. However, at this moment, a black long sword appeared in the skinny black-robed man's hand. With a swing of the long sword, the Eastern barbarian's head fell to the ground and blood splattered everywhere. "Open for me." The skinny black-robed man's Zhenqi spurted out. Blood was driven by his Zhenqi, forming streaks of blood that fell on the stone pillars and the ground. Buzz! More than 100 stone pillars suddenly vibrated and emitted a bright light. Then, the light on the 100 over stone pillars gathered together, forming a huge pillar of light that was as large as a mountain shooting up into the sky. This light pillar was so bright that it could be seen from hundreds of miles away. At this moment, hundreds of miles away, Lu Ming was running through a forest when he suddenly saw the light pillar that shot up into the sky. What is that? Could it be that a rare treasure has appeared? Let's go take a look. With a swift movement, Lu Ming dashed in the direction of the light pillar. At the same time, in different places, the other disciples of the Mystic Essence Sword sect also saw the light pillar and also rushed toward it. In the light pillar area, if you want to leave me aside and take it for yourself, then let the disciples of the Mystic Essence Sword sect come together. Let's see if you can kill all the disciples of the Mystic Essence Sword sect. The skinny black-robed man laughed hoarsely. Damn it! Damn it! The Dongi tribesmen were furious. "I'll kill you first." A fifth-grade martial master elder roared and continued to attack the skinny black-robed man. Suddenly, the ground shook. Then, streaks of blood-red light shot out from the ground and attacked the Dongi tribesmen. Some of the Dongi tribesmen screamed as they were pierced by the blood-red light. At this moment, the crowd was shocked to see that the blood-red light was actually a blood-red vine. The vine was as thick as a finger. It shot out from the ground and wriggled wildly, entangling the Dongi tribesman. The man who was pierced by the vine let out a shrill scream. His Zhenqi burst forth as he tried to break free. However, the blood-red vine was so tough that it was impossible for him to break free. Moreover, it kept wriggling as if it was sucking the man's blood. The Dongi tribesman's body shriveled up at a speed visible to the naked eye. The blood-red vine absorbed the blood and became even crazier. It kept wriggling and attacking the others. There were hundreds of them. It was a lot. Ha ha ha. Enjoy yourselves. The skinny black-robed man was very fast. His thin figure flashed as he dodged the blood-red vines. He rushed toward the wolf-shaped mountain peak. Damn it! Kill him! A Dongi tribesman roared. However, a few more Dongi tribesmen were entangled by the blood-red vines. The vines pierced their skin and sucked their blood. Those who are third-grade martial master and below, retreat. Those who are third-grade martial master and above, charge with us. A fifth-grade martial master elder roared. The Dongi tribesmen immediately split into two groups. Those with lower cultivation retreated from the stone pillar, while those with higher cultivation charged in together. On the other hand, Lu Ming was running at high speed. He covered a distance of a few hundred miles in just half an hour. What a strange mountain peak! As he approached, Lu Ming saw the wolf-shaped mountain peak. This was the first time he had seen such a strange mountain peak. Intense battle cries came from ahead. When Lu Ming arrived, he saw two groups of people fighting. One group was the disciples of the Mystic Essence Sword Sect, such as Chun Quan. There were also disciples from the other schools. It seemed that they were closer to this place and had arrived earlier than Lu Ming. The other group was, of course, the Dongi tribesmen. However, the Dongi tribesmen had no experts. They were all third-grade martial masters and below. They were no match for the Mystic Essence Sword Sect disciples. However, there were no third-grade martial masters or above among the Dongi tribesmen. Let's retreat first. Chapter 163. Whoosh, whoosh. Blood-colored vines shot out from the ground, entangling the corpses and sucking their blood. Are these vampiric vines? It seems that the Dongi experts have all rushed in. This must be an important place left behind by the Dongi ancestors. There must be treasures inside. Let's go in. Some of the Mystic Essence Sword Sect disciples also rushed in. Of course, some of the weaker cultivators, such as martial masters of first and second realm, were afraid of the vampiric vines and did not rush in. Those who rushed out were all martial masters of third realm and above. There were more than a dozen of them. Lu Ming's eyes flashed, and he rushed out as well. Whoosh, whoosh. Suddenly, blood-colored vines shot toward Lu Ming like streaks of blood-colored lightning. Lu Ming swept out his long spear, knocking the blood-colored vines away. Although these blood-colored vines were fatal to martial artists at the first or second level of the martial master realm, they posed no threat to him at all. Lu Ming barged past them quickly and ran toward the huge mouth of the wolf-shaped mountain peak. However, he stopped after a short while. In front of him, demonic beasts roared and evil chi filled the air. There were at least 50 demonic corpses and devil puppets fighting fiercely with the Dongi group. These Dongi experts were of third realm and above martial masters. They had broken through the blood snake vines, but were unexpectedly surrounded by a large number of demonic corpses and devil puppets. Moreover, these demonic corpses and devil puppets were abnormally strong. Lu Ming even found demonic corpses and devil puppets that were equivalent to fourth realm martial masters. There were more than a dozen of them. On the ground, several Dongi experts had already been torn apart. It was a horrible sight. Whoosh, whoosh. Behind them, Chun Quan and the others rushed through the blood snake vines. However, when they saw the demonic corpses and devil puppets, their faces turned green. How can we fight so many demonic corpses and devil puppets? Chun Quan said with an ugly expression. In front of them, the Dongi tribe had clearly seen Lu Ming and the others. You guys retreat first. The two of us will barge in. The mystic essence sword sects brats won't be able to barge in. A fifth-layer martial grand master of the Dongi tribe shouted. The other eastern barbarians retreated from the encirclement of the demon corpses and devil puppets. What was strange was that when the Dongi tribesmen retreated to a certain distance, the demon corpse devil puppet did not chase after them. Instead, it pounced on the two fifth-level martial grandmasters with all its might, as if it wanted to stop them from rushing in. However, the two old men of the fifth level of the martial master realm teamed up and slowly made their way inside. What should we do? With so many powerful fiend corpses and devil puppets, there's no way we can break in. A youth from the Azure Dragon Institute roared. No matter what, let's give it a try. The remaining fourth-level martial master from the White Tiger Hall was unwilling to give up and charged forward. However, in the blink of an eye, 3 or 4 demon corpse devil puppets, which were equivalent to fourth-level martial grandmaster, pounced on him. He had to use all of his strength to break free and retreat. He was almost seriously injured, and his expression was extremely gloomy. There were too many demon corpse devil puppets, which were equivalent to fourth-level martial grandmaster. It was impossible to break through. Junior brother Lu Ming, do you want to give it a try? Chun Quan looked at Lu Ming. Of course. Lu Ming smiled faintly. All of a sudden, he dashed out into the midst of the demon corpses and devil puppets. Roar! Roar! Suddenly, 3 or 4 fourth-level martial grandmaster demon corpse devil puppets pounced on Lu Ming. Get lost! Lu Ming's eyes flashed as he swept out with his long spear. Boom! With a loud boom, 3 or 4 demon corpse devil puppets were sent flying. How can this be? Chun Quan, the other disciples of the Mystic Essence Sword Sect, and the Dongi tribesmen were all shocked. Sweeping away 3 or 4 fourth-level martial grandmaster demon corpse devil puppets with a single spear, this was too strong. This definitely required the strength of a fifth-level martial grandmaster. Could it be that Lu Ming already had the strength of a fifth-level martial grandmaster? Wasn't this too unbelievable? It had only been a few months since the 4 Academies tournament. Wasn't Lu Ming's progress too terrifying? Boom, boom. With the long spear in his hand, Lu Ming was invincible. One by one, the demon corpse devil puppets were sent flying. Lu Ming quickly pushed forward. At this moment, the 2 fifth-level martial grandmaster elders of the Dongi tribe had already broken through the encirclement of the demon corpse devil puppets and appeared 100 meters ahead. It seemed that this was the forbidden area of the demon corpse devil puppets. Once there, not a single demon corpse devil puppet pursued them. They had originally planned to rush indirectly. After all, the skinny black-robed man had disappeared. Perhaps he had already rushed into the cave residence of the Dongi tribe's ancestor. However, at this moment, they saw Lu Ming rushing toward them. Damn it, we can't let this person pass. The 2 of us will stop him here, a slightly bigger elder said with a gloomy face. All right, we will stop him here and then go in to kill that guy. The things left behind by the Dongi tribe's ancestor must not fall into the hands of outsiders. The slightly fatter elder nodded. His face was filled with murderous intent. The 2 of them stood side by side, staring coldly at Lu Ming. Lu Ming waved his long spear and sent the demon corpse devil puppets flying. He quickly rushed forward. A few minutes later, he was close to the 2 elders of the Dongi tribe. At this moment, the demon corpse devil puppets roared and stopped chasing Lu Ming. They returned to their original positions and glared at Chun Quan and the others. Go to hell. At this moment, the 2 elders of the Dongi tribe rushed toward Lu Ming at the same time. Lu Ming's eyes flashed. He did not take the attack head-on. Instead, he used the airborne steps and soared into the sky, avoiding the attacks of the 2 elders. Then he took a few steps in the air as if he was walking on empty air. He moved a few dozen meters forward and directly leaped over the two elders. "Ha, I'll go first." Lu Ming laughed loudly. He extended his body and dashed toward the wolf-shaped mountain peak. "Stop right there." "Damn it." The two elders of the Dongi tribe roared and chased after Lu Ming. In the blink of an eye, they disappeared without a trace. Lu Ming actually rushed in. The other disciples of the Mystic Essence Sword sect were envious, especially the disciples of the White Tiger Hall. Lu Ming rushed forward, getting closer and closer to the black mouth of the wolf-shaped mountain peak. Lu Ming did not stop and rushed indirectly. The two elders of the Dongi tribe followed closely behind. "I'll find a chance to break through them one by one." Lu Ming's eyes flashed with murderous intent. He had just broken through to the second realm of the Martial Master realm. He was confident that he could deal with a fifth realm Martial Master. However, he was not sure if he could deal with two of them at the same time. The dark cave was extremely deep and serene. Lu Ming ran forward for thousands of meters before he reached the end of the cave. In front of him, it suddenly opened up, and a huge stone chamber appeared. There were 6 stone pillars in the stone room. On top of each pillar, there was a secret manual suspended. There was a layer of light covering the secret manuals. At this moment, 2 of the secret manuals on the stone pillars had already disappeared. On the other stone pillar, a thin figure in a black robe was constantly bombarding the halo on a secret manual. At this moment, the thin figure in the black robe seemed to have noticed Lu Ming and glanced at him. Chapter 164. Who is he? Lu Ming was puzzled. The skinny black-robed man merely cast a nonchalant glance at Lu Ming and ignored him. He continued to bombard the halo that enveloped the secret manual. "I don't care who he is. These secret manuals are protected by inscriptions. After so many years, the power of the inscriptions has not dissipated. They must be extraordinary. I'll get them first." Lu Ming's mind raced. With a flash of his figure, he flew toward another stone pillar. At the same time, he thrust his long spear at lightning speed. Boom! The long spear pierced the halo that enveloped the secret manual, and a rumbling sound was heard. The halo began to tremble like water ripples. However, it did not shatter. What a powerful inscription defense! After so many years, it still has such a strong defense. Lu Ming was amazed. It's a secret manual. It's a secret manual left behind by the ancestors of the Dongi tribe. "Damn it! How dare you touch our secret manuals? You're courting death." The 2 elders of the Dongi tribe roared angrily when they saw what was happening. Then, the 2 Dongi elders pounced on the skinny black-robed man. 2 snow-white blade lights cut through the air and slashed at the skinny black-robed man. "You're really ungrateful. I told you to come here, and you attack me first?" The skinny black-robed man abandoned the secret manual and dodged the attack. "Humph! If you didn't trick us, how could that bastard from the Mystic Essence Sword sect enter? All the treasures here are ours. We'll kill him after we finish you," the skinny elder said coldly. "Ridiculous! Do you really think you can kill me?" the skinny black-robed man said in a hoarse voice. At the same time, his aura surged. A black sword appeared in his hand. He swung the sword and slashed at the 2 elders. Clang! Clang! The 3 of them exchanged a few blows. The skinny black-robed man was at a disadvantage and retreated quickly. At this moment, Lu Ming was crazily attacking a circle of light. After dozens of consecutive shots, the circle of light finally exploded with a bang like a ball of fireworks. Lu Ming reached out and grabbed the secret manual in his hands. The book was very soft. It was neither gold nor jade. He didn't have time to look at it carefully. With a thought, he put it in the Temple of Paragon. Then it pounced on another stone pillar. Whoosh, whoosh. At that moment, the sound of something breaking through the air rang out. The skinny black-robed man was running toward Lu Ming with the two Dongi elders in hot pursuit. Nestle! Lu Ming couldn't help but curse. The skinny black-robed man was clearly trying to divert the trouble away. Little brother, why don't we join forces and kill these two old men? We'll split the loot equally. What do you think? The thin black-robed man shouted. Lu Ming's eyes flashed. Then he said, Sure, one for each of us. With that, Lu Ming rushed towards the old man. The two elders of the Dongi tribe had to be dealt with sooner or later. Otherwise, they wouldn't have let him go. It would be better for him to join forces with the skinny black-robed man and deal with the two elders first. All right. The skinny black-robed man was overjoyed. He turned around and attacked the fat elder. Damn it, do you think that joining forces will work? The skinny elder roared. He slashed his saber and attacked Lu Ming crazily. Lu Ming's long spear vibrated. The spear radiance pierced through the air and clashed with the skinny elder. Boom, boom. There were explosions in the stone chamber. In the blink of an eye, Lu Ming and the skinny elder had exchanged more than 20 blows. Lu Ming became stronger and stronger as the fight went on. He gradually suppressed his opponent. On the other side, the skinny black-robed man also displayed his powerful combat strength. He suppressed the fat elder to the point that he couldn't fight back. Damn it, let's retreat. The two Dongi elders roared in their hearts, but they already had the intention to retreat. It's too late for you to leave now. The skinny black-robed man shouted coldly. He waved his hands, and rays of black light flashed through the air. The sound of something breaking through the air could be heard. The fat elder's expression changed drastically. He waved his saber rapidly, and a series of clanking sounds could be heard. However, he didn't know what the sound of something breaking through the air was. It was too dense and fast. He couldn't completely block it. Puff! Finally, something hit the fat elder's body and cut a long wound. Puff, puff! The skinny black-robed man continued to wave his hands. The sound of something breaking through the air became even more intense. The fat elder roared again and again, but it was useless. Puff! Blood splattered everywhere. The fat elder's throat was pierced. He screamed and fell to the ground. The skinny elder was shocked. He didn't dare to continue fighting. He slashed his saber a few times, trying to force Lu Ming to retreat and then escape. You underestimate me too much. I'll send you to accompany your companions. Lu Ming shouted coldly, and his long spear stabbed out rapidly. Explode! Boom! A terrifying energy erupted from the tip of the spear and blasted toward Elder Chu. Elder Chu's body shook violently. He coughed up blood and almost exploded. However, what greeted him was Lu Ming's long spear. Puff! The fiery red spear pierced through Old Man Kuei's chest, piercing through it. Elder Chu was dead. The two elders of the Dongi tribe were both killed. Impressive. You're so young, but your strength is so terrifying. You're really admirable. The skinny black-robed man laughed hoarsely and slowly approached Lu Ming. Lu Ming withdrew his long spear. He controlled his bloodline and silently devoured Elder Chu's blood essence. Instantly, the blood essence of a fifth-grade martial master was refined. It turned into a torrent of energy and surged into Lu Ming's body to replenish his genuine qi. Lu Ming pretended to gasp for breath and said, "You're the one who's unfathomable. You actually led the Dongi tribe to their ancestral remains. It seems that you were the one who instigated the Dongi tribe to attack the Burning Sun Empire? Haha, I had no choice. I had to borrow the Dongi tribe's help to open their ancestral remains. Now, everything is settled. Only you and I are left. How about we split the treasures here? The skinny black-robed man laughed hoarsely. Of course. Lu Ming smiled. At this moment, the skinny black-robed man suddenly attacked. He pounced at Lu Ming like lightning. He waved his hands, and the sound of something breaking through the air could be heard. However, Lu Ming was very calm. It was as if he had expected the skinny black-robed man's sneak attack. The moment the skinny black-robed man attacked, Lu Ming drifted back and waved his long spear. The tip of the spear vibrated and turned into rays of spear radiance. Ding ding, there was a series of clashing sounds. The skinny black-robed man's attacks were all blocked by Lu Ming. You knew I was going to attack. The skinny black-robed man seemed surprised. One must always be vigilant, Lu Ming said coldly. You're young, but you're quite vigilant. You think you can stop me? Naive. In the next moment, the skinny black-robed man disappeared and suddenly appeared behind Lu Ming. He stabbed his sword at Lu Ming's back. Moon seizing. Lu Ming did not hesitate. He swept his long spear behind him. Clang! The spear and sword clashed. Lu Ming's body trembled. However, he stomped heavily and continued to attack the skinny black-robed man. If you want to kill me, I'll kill you first. Chapter 165. Lu Ming's long spear danced like a dragon as the power of fire erupted. Combined with the flaming star spear art, the power was terrifying. As the long spear danced, it was as if a volcano had erupted. Heat filled the air and enveloped the skinny black-robed man. Boom! The skinny black-robed man resisted with all his might, but he was still swept by the heat. The black bamboo hat suddenly exploded, revealing the face under the black robe. Lu Ming was taken aback. This was because it was actually a woman's face. She was about 15 or 16 years old. She looked even younger than Lu Ming. She had an oval face, willowy eyebrows, round and watery almond-shaped eyes, and snow-white skin. She was actually an unrivaled beauty. Lu Ming thought it was a skinny old man. He did not expect it to be a beautiful girl. Humph! I did not expect a genius like you to exist in the small Burning Sun Empire. You are only a second-grade martial master, yet you can break my bamboo hat. Since that is the case, I will not hide anymore. I will show you my true strength. The beautiful girl's voice was clear and melodious, like round pearls falling on a jade plate. However, at this moment, her voice was filled with cold, killing intent. Whoosh! The beautiful girl tore the black robe on her body. The black robe was torn apart, like black butterflies dancing in the air, revealing the girl's delicate figure. The girl's clothing was very strange. Her black robe was very short, revealing her snow-white abdomen. She also wore a short black skirt, revealing her legs. Her legs were delicate and white, slender and well-proportioned. Together with the girl's beautiful face, they formed a beautiful picture. However, Lu Ming was not in the mood to appreciate it. The girl had already launched a fierce attack on him. Heavenly demon magic skill, Demon Lotus Dance. The beautiful girl shouted. The black true chi on her body surged and condensed into black lotuses around her body. Then the girl waved her hands, and the black lotuses spread out. Black petals pierced through the air, making ear-piercing whistling sounds as they flew towards Lu Ming. Lu Ming finally knew what method the girl had used to kill the old man from the Dongi tribe. It was these petals. However, the speed of the petals was obviously faster than before. There were also more petals. Fire dance. The long spear swayed, and flames appeared all around Lu Ming's body. Ding! Ding! Rapid sounds of collisions could be heard. Within a few breaths, there were over 100 collisions. What a powerful force! Lu Ming felt that every time they clashed, the power coming from the black petal was extremely shocking. After clashing with it over 100 times, even with Lu Ming's cultivation base, he still felt his arm go numb. Great demonic palm! The beautiful girl shouted. Her beautiful legs bounced slightly, and her body soared into the sky. She continuously struck out a few palms at Lu Ming. 3 black palm prints lined up in a row, one after the other. They tore through the air and attacked Lu Ming. Broken armor. Lu Ming thrust out his long spear. The spear tip rotated, bringing about a powerful rotational cutting force. Bang! The first palm print was defeated by Lu Ming, but Lu Ming's body swayed, and he couldn't help but take 2 steps back. However, the second palm print had already arrived. Broken armor. Continuing to use this move, he defeated the second palm print. However, Lu Ming's body took 8 steps back, and his face turned pale. Immediately, the third palm print arrived. Landslide! Break for me! Lu Ming roared and swept out with his long spear. The shaft of the spear vibrated, and it collided with the third palm print. Boom! Lu Ming felt as if he was struck by lightning. His body trembled, and he was forced to take more than 10 steps back. The blood in his body surged, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Too powerful. Where did this genius come from? At this moment, Lu Ming's heart was filled with shock. Previously, the aura of the girl was hazy. It seemed very strong, but no one could clearly see her cultivation base. However, when the girl used the great demonic palm, her cultivation base was finally exposed. Second layer martial master. This beautiful girl's cultivation base was actually the same as Lu Ming's second layer martial master. However, her battle strength was terrifyingly strong, and she was able to suppress Lu Ming. Currently, Lu Ming's true dragon of battle technique had reached the 3rd layer, and he had also comprehended the force of fire. With such a strong battle strength, he was actually suppressed in a battle of the same level. Force. This girl has also comprehended force, and her force realm is definitely higher than mine. Furthermore, she is very strong in other aspects. Is there such a genius in the Blazing Sun Empire? No, from her tone, she shouldn't be from the Blazing Sun Empire. Lu Ming's mind quickly turned. Kid, not bad. I didn't think that there would be a second layer martial master in the Blazing Sun Empire. Being able to block my great demonic palm, even I am somewhat appreciative of your talent. How about this? If you leave now, I'll spare your life. The beautiful girl looked at Lu Ming in surprise and said, The outcome hasn't been decided yet. I don't have the habit of admitting defeat so easily. Lu Ming grinned, and his eyes were filled with battle intent. Humph, I just praised you, and you think you're in the sky? Then I'll show you the difference between the two of us. The girl snorted and moved her body, charging towards Lu Ming. So fast! This is the force of wind. Lu Ming's pupils constricted, and he suddenly swept out his long spear. Boom! The two of them exchanged a blow, and then engaged in a fierce battle. It had to be said that the beautiful girl's battle strength was very terrifying. Lu Ming had already used all his strength except for his bloodline, but he was still completely suppressed by the girl. After 7 to 8 blows, Lu Ming was completely defeated, and blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. I'll send you on your way. The girl's voice was very cold as she continuously attacked with a few great demonic palm. Now's the time. Lu Ming's eyes suddenly lit up, and a bloody light flashed on his body as his bloodline burst out. Afterward, Lu Ming ignored the young lady's heavenly fiend great handprint and dashed toward her. Boom, boom, boom. 3 consecutive black palm prints blasted on Lu Ming's body, but Lu Ming's body only trembled. He gritted his teeth and rushed towards the girl. The girl was stunned. She never thought that Lu Ming could actually resist her great demonic palm. By the time she reacted, Lu Ming was already in front of her. Whoosh! The long spear stabbed out as fast as lightning, but the girl's reaction was also very fast. She waved her palm and slapped Lu Ming's long spear aside. But Lu Ming's momentum did not stop and continued to crash towards the girl. At the same time, his palm glowed and the long spear disappeared. Lu Ming grabbed at the girl's throat. This time, the girl could no longer dodge and was pounced on by Lu Ming. At the same time, her throat was also grabbed by Lu Ming's fingers. But Lu Ming's fingers did not reach down, because a dagger had appeared in the girl's hand out of nowhere and was pressed against Lu Ming's back. As long as Lu Ming's claws exerted force, the girl's dagger would instantly pierce through Lu Ming's heart. But on the other hand, the girl did not dare to stab the dagger down, because if she exerted force, Lu Ming's claws would instantly break her throat. The two of them were in a deadlock just like that. It was just that the two of them were in an ambiguous position. Lu Ming held the girl's neck with one hand and her slender waist with the other.